I'm using new headphones tonight, so I just want to make sure everyone can hear me.
I can hear you great. Thanks.
Perfect.
I'm using new ones too. Does it sound okay?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Oh, you can't see it? Okay. To the agenda? Oh, to that. Okay. Jennifer, you did see the 2 changes for the agenda, correct? That they were minor changes?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
It is 6 o'clock. Are we ready to get started?
I think so.
Okay. So Board Chair Jill Hoffman is not available tonight, so I'm leading the meeting, and we'll call this meeting August 17th, 2020 Monticello School Board meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Can I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I think motion made by Candace Carta, seconded by Melissa Curtis. We'll do roll call. All those in favor, Melissa?
Aye.
Candace?
Aye.
Missy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Jennifer, aye. Motion passes 5-0. I don't believe we had any citizens' comments tonight, correct, Joe?
Yes, that's right. We did not.
Okay, so now on to the consent agenda, and everyone should have received those items in the board packet. If there are no questions or discussions, we can call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion made, I think, by Candace Carta again, and seconded by Melissa Curtis. All those in favor by roll call. Candace?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Missy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Jennifer, aye. Motion passes 5-0. Now on to Barb for the substitute rate.
All right, good evening, everyone. This will be a quick presentation about proposed substitute rates for the upcoming school year. We've talked about this for a little while, and so it's time for us to make some decisions. So for the substitute rates for support staff, our current rate, we'll go group by group. We'll start with custodians. Our current rate is $14. The comparison range is $11.25 to $15.82. So we're proposing a rate of $15 for custodians as subs. Food service, our current rate is $13. Our comparison range is $10.25 to $14. So we are proposing a rate as of $13.50. For paraprofessionals, we're currently at $14. The comparison rate is $11.50 to $15. So we're proposing $14.50 for paraprofessionals, and our health office substitute rate is $16.50. Secretaries, we have the current rate at $14 with comparison ranges at $10 to $17. So we're proposing a substitute rate of $15. We also discussed having a retired employee rate. So we're recommending a retired employee rate of $18. And most of these people that are retiring from our district are not getting like their longevity and things like that as a part of this rate, but we do need to acknowledge that they are able to come in and do a really great job for us. They're very trustworthy and bring good skills. So that's our recommendation for our substitute support staff rates. Any comments about these before we go on to teachers? Okay, for our teacher rates, we have day-to-day substitutes. You can see some comparison rates that we used and what we used in 1920. For this upcoming school year, we are proposing that we adjust these day-to-day substitute rates to $125 for substitutes for their first 20 days. After that, they would move up to $135 a day. And after they put in 50 or more days, they would be at $145. And we pay our retired teachers right away at the $145 a day rate. Long-term substitutes are substitutes that are in the same position for 30 or more days, and we pay them the beginning rate of the teacher contract, which is $215.07 a day. And the one thing that we are proposing too is to create a on-call substitute. These would be 60-day contracts that we would work with substitutes to get 6 to 8 people that are contracting with us to provide day-to-day substitutes for up to 60 days. And we're proposing a rate of $175 a day for those substitutes. Questions about these? All right, then. We're good.
Thank you, Barb. I know it's always important to have good substitutes, and I think by increasing the rates, we can get more incentive to keep our good substitutes.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody
Barb?
else have any questions?
Barb, I have a question.
Sure.
The 60-day on call, is that kind of what we had discussed you were going to talk to EMM about?
This is what we just talked to the board about. We haven't really discussed this with EM. What we're really proposing is 1 to 2 contracted subs per building. And then these would be the first go-tos for any kinds of absences that we might have. And the 60 days gets us right around winter break and into January if we don't need them every day between now and then. And that just gives us some time to try to figure out where do we need the substitutes, how many do we need, and it gets some commitment. So we have some to start with, and then we'll be able to adjust a little bit better from there.
So once we hire an individual as a 60-day sub, highly unlikely, but if they have a day that they're not needed, they'll still be paid that rate for that day?
Well, how we're hoping to work this out is have them commit to 60 days and have them start in the middle of September. And then they would be the first call to any building, a 1 or 2 day. So we would have like 2 at the high school, for example. The first 2 sub positions would go to these 2 subs. And then from there, we would have to get other subs to fill in. So we're not thinking there's going to be that many days where we wouldn't need them, because we have a need. I mean, we have a basic need for subs. And in the event that they weren't paid or they wanted the day off, we would just move that to the end of the contract. So we're going to try to be flexible and get people who we can accommodate some of their requests for days off, but still have some consistency in place.
And Jeff,
So I guess, go ahead, Eric.
I think this was like one of your ideas along with EMM out when we met with them earlier this summer. So I think it was an idea. Teachers are worried that we won't have enough substitutes. And so in securing these substitutes earlier in the school year, it should help us just kind of alleviate some stress on the system.
No, I'm all for it. I just want to make sure that, I guess I'm a little confused. So will we hire 2 subs right away saying you're going to be our 60-day subs, and then we'll assign them to fill in for somebody, or are we just going to kind of wait and see and then hire them?
Well, what we're hoping to do is hire 6 to 8 for the district, assign them to a building, and then every day that that building needs a sub, they would be one of the first ones called or referred. So if they couldn't take a position on a day for some reason, then they wouldn't come in and we wouldn't pay them for that day. We would just move that day a little bit further out.
So instead of being done December 10th, they'd be done December 12th or 11th.
Correct. And a lot of it
Okay.
is really going to depend on our demand early in the year, and we'll just take it as it comes. So 60 days will get us to winter break timeline, or maybe the end of November, somewhere in there. And so it'll get us a good distance into the school year. So we'll have a better idea of, do we need to hire these people permanently? What do we need to do to make sure we have subs through the year? We felt like sitting with Tina, we felt like looking at the staffing ratios, that 6 to 8, we could probably keep busy every day. And if we didn't need a day, then the days would just get added on to the end of the contract. So we wouldn't be paying for subs if we didn't need them. I think that was the concern.
Yeah, and I guess my other concern would be is if we're asking someone to make a 60-day commitment to being a substitute, and we kind of have them locked in for that 60-day substitute, and by crazy chance, if for some day we didn't need them, I mean, they're locked into a 60-day substitute, doesn't provide them an opportunity to go somewhere else and substitute for a day then, does it?
Not really. I mean, I think we're looking for somebody to commit to 60 days, and we're looking for setting that for within the first semester. So that would be to, I think, January. But the likelihood that we will use those days up earlier would be great. And we are recommending that $175 a day rate versus the $125 a day for just a day-to-day sub, hoping that that will draw some people into that. And then we're also going to ask them to stay in one building so that they can become very familiar with the routines and the other staff, and hopefully also limit spread. So we're gonna start and massage it as we go, Jeff, so it's a win-win for both.
And I'm not debating that at all, Barb. I think it's a great idea, and I think everything with this is good. I don't want to have a person make a commitment to 60 days for us, and then we're making them a commit to one building and making them commit to 60 days, but then they have, and I this isn't going to happen. Maybe I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but if let's say there's 2 days where they're not needed, are they out of $175 each day then? Or are we going to just keep paying them and saying that you made this 60-day commitment to us, we're going to continue to honor that commitment and pay you?
No, we're thinking that every day they work, we will pay them the 175 rate versus the 125 rate, but we will run it the same as we do our day-to-day subs.
Okay.
So they'll only be paid when they're working, just like our other subs.
We might be able to draw from our, our retired teachers. We might be able to get some community experts that maybe have, a second job and are looking to supplement that. So I think there are some candidacy pools, and we've pulled from like that community expert pool before to do some long-term subs. So I think we potentially have 2 different markets out there, and or somebody out of college, that ended up not finding a job and would like to get some experience. This would be a good entry-level position to gain that experience as well. So I think maybe 3 different pools we could be drawing from.
Mm-hmm. Like you said, Jeff, we're just kind of designing this so that, and giving it a try, and then we'll see if we need to adjust it. We'll really, keep a read on people. Okay, I think this is an action item to approve the rate changes and the concept, at least, of going forward with the 60-day subs.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Melissa Curtis. And who seconded it?
Missy.
Misty. Okay, all those in favor by roll call. Missy?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Candace?
Aye.
And Jennifer? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Eric, you're up with the first reading of policies.
Yeah, and for the first one, I'm going to call on my resident expert, food service, Tina Burkholder, for policy 534.
So with our unpaid meal charges, we made a change where the communication, I think it's on page two. The communication will mainly be from the food service department and the district office. In the past, it was the principal and social worker making the second contact, and then the third and final with the district office. So just removing the principal and social workers from that and just keeping it with the food service and district office. And I don't think it fits in here, and we didn't really talk about it in the committee meeting, but to go along with that, we have our angel funds, and just having those combined and also being directed under the district office, since we are making the decisions and having the communication with families. So I don't think it needs to be in policy, but just a procedure that going forward with this change, the angel funds will be under the district office. And this is just the first reading.
Any questions on that policy?
Tina, can you remind me how we did it before it was signed to the principals and the social worker? What was our process before that?
That was the process before, where the second contact was made by either the principal or the social worker with the families, once it got to a -40.
And I think prior to that, Jeff, I think we have had food service directors kind of own this, and so it might have never, trickled down. And or when the policy was changed, I think we also oftentimes had a food service director that would, be an intervention and do some of that work, but yet we also have experienced that work inside the building offices as well.
Okay, so this is another thing on your plate, Tina, correct?
Correct. Has to go somewhere.
I understand. But does this make the process easier if it's all in your department or area?
Sure.
Okay.
I think if we have the right people in place, it'll work.
Any other questions, or I will go to our next two policies. All right, policy 537 is our extreme weather policy. And this policy is being brought to you in order to meet the upcoming opening of our nature-based education classrooms. So we have our nature-based preschool, and as we look to extend that to our elementary grade levels, K through 5, I would like to add a letter for the outside temperature and coordinate it with the recess temperature. So on our current policy, letter A talks about elementary students will not be required to go outside during the school day when the temperature is below 0 degrees or the wind chill is a -10 degrees or colder. And I'd like to use that same verbiage and add a letter B here. And it will read as outdoor nature-based education programs will not be required to go outside during the day when the temperature is below 0 degrees or the wind chill is 10 degrees or colder. Students in this program may go outside on these colder days for a small amount of time. So we do have at each site, we do have a warm area, a building structure with bathroom facilities and tables and chairs set up to resemble a classroom. But since it's nature-based, the premise behind this isn't to move your classrooms from the elementary buildings to a park and use their pavilion, but it's to be outside most of the time and then have that structure to be able to come in and to do some of your learning and potentially some eating if the weather dictates that, And also then now when we know that the weather is going to be cold, we would not expect teachers and kids to go out for long periods of time. Looking at other programs that do some outdoor things, it's kind of a, and talking with Sarah Hagan, who did the preschool program, they really, even on cold days, they did go outside for very small amounts of time to get a little bit of exercise, to get a little bit of movement. The kids were never forced to do, they would always want to, and these were 4-year-olds. So I think that outdoor fun for a small amounts of time on cold weather would still be permitted, how we have this worded, but it won't be required.
Eric, when they are in the site at those areas for those particular sites, there is enough room to maintain distancing as we need to?
Yes,
Okay.
we were meeting earlier today to look at putting our students and going through the lottery in order to get the students into their outdoor nature-based classrooms. And we will err on the side of caution when it comes to that and make sure that we meet those guidelines. We did have an architect, GLT architects, make sure that they took the city plans and they use their formulas to give them a 50% occupancy number. And then we have submitted those for state approval. And we did get an informal approval from the state inspector of all the sites. And now they will take that informal approval and turn it into a formal approval through a site visit. So we're on the right track, and I've done these types of approvals through building processes in our town, in our school district. And so getting that initial informal okay was a great sign of what's on the horizon to come. So that felt good today. All right, so that was policy 537.
Eric,
And then, yeah,
I have a question.
yeah.
Jill, could you please scroll down to that addition of the B that was just added in yellow? Does there need to be a structural time frame here? Like, for example, students in this program may go outside in these cold days for a small amount of time for 15 minutes, for 15 to 25 minutes, not to exceed 25 minutes. I don't know. I'm just asking. Do we have like any documentation exactly how they did at the preschool or what the decision was based on how long they were outside or anything like that?
Yeah, we could add some numbers there, Jeff. I think the numbers that we would use would be the numbers that we use to decide if we're going the wind chill chart and how many minutes you could be outside. So we could go to that level. I thought, we don't have that in policy as well, as the numbers do change from time to time. So that would be the only reason why not to. I know the wind chill chart has changed maybe with at least once in the last, I want to say about 5 years. So that's why I remember as a principal, we did change the wording in that one. So we could add some numbers there. I thought I could make it part of our practice as we go through cold weather to, give the teachers each day that it was going to be cold and we needed to use that chart. We could give them guidance on how long they could, and we could either put that in policy or we could just have it in practice. As soon as we hire our teachers here later this week, I would like to start meeting with them to start putting together that nature-based educational handbook. So it'll have a separate parent handbook. And that could be a component of it, is that wind chill chart and how many minutes. So it would be up to you as a school board. We could put it right in here in policy, and there's lots of great reasons to do that. Or we could put it as part of our handbook, and that would be, it would be great either way. You tell me.
The only reason I bring this up is that I don't want to obviously tie a teacher's hands. Maybe they're outside, but they're in a a sheltered area that protects them. And so obviously could, and I don't want to tie teachers' hands in that aspect. I just don't want any emails or I don't want any phone calls about Johnny and Susie were outside in this terribly cold weather and what is the district doing and what is their thought process for having these kids outside during this cold weather. I mean, they can't be outside. And I know a part of it is just trusting that our teachers will make good decisions about this, but I really don't want to have to hear stuff like that. So,
Well,
and I don't know how you address it, but
instead of doing a set time not to exceed 20 minutes, we could just reference in the policy that they'll use the wind chill guide or map or whatever, chart it is in making that decision. So if the wind chill chart changes, we're still using that. We don't have that set time in the policy.
and I think I heard you say this, that's going to be consistent with what we've done for like going out for recess. And obviously, I think that's important that if our kids don't go for recess, then maybe they aren't outside for the outdoor nature-based program, even though it is an outdoor base, so that if there's a consistent ruling throughout the district, like, oh, our kids at middle school didn't go outside today either. So I think that would just be helpful. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I know. I mean, just taking the practice. So last year, the preschool program, and what Sarah Hagan said, they rarely had to be inside just because for long periods of time, because the whole premise behind the program is to be outside, and so they would come through the warm areas in small doses of time. But for the most part, I know we had a little bit milder of a winter last year. But she said that it was just amazing how much time, the students wanted to spend outside. So I think, that I still think we can go either way here. I think what Jennifer said is maybe referencing that guide and having that be part of this, like in the letter C. I think that might serve us well. Because I know, like, even like in the building principal world, like they would, especially in the fall, we don't always go by this. Like one of the first cold days of the year, you're more likely to call indoor recess because students don't have all their adequate gear yet. And so, teachers will kind of let you know that, hey, we have lots of students today without the proper clothes. It's one of the first cold days of the year. And so I do think a little leeway is always good within every program. To meet the needs of your people on that given day. So, but I do think that adding that chart right here would be a good idea, and I can do that to letter C, and we can bring that back for second reading at the next board meeting and see how that looks. What do you guys think of that?
I like that idea. That would help with
Good.
consistency too.
All right, we'll bring that one back in September at our next school board meeting, and hopefully we don't have any cold weather before then. So we should have a little bit of time. We're getting it to you on the front end of the school year here. Great discussion, great feedback, and we'll carry that one through and add a letter C. The next policy is MSBA Model Policy 809. This is a brand new policy, so it's all new. And we did not talk about this one at the policy meeting because we did not get to it. So, but it is one that I believe is imperative to help guide all of our teachers, our principals, and all of our people who need to watch and help with the face mask executive order. So the purpose of this document, policy 809, is to make sure that we uphold the executive order from our governor 20-82. And so I'm going to just read through, highlight not everything, but just I'm going to highlight a couple areas that I think have been questions for our administration and our teachers, and then open it up for some questions. So I think the biggest thing that, you know, that both principals and teachers want to know is like, what are, you know, what is constitute of a face covering? So face coverings are listed in Roman numeral 3. And yep, perfect. Jill's got them right where we needed them. But those are all the different options. So disposable mask, cloth mask, scarf, neck gaiter, bandana, religious face covering, and medical grade masks and respirators. And then it goes on to describe a definition of a face covering, which is B, which is a face shield. And why that's important is because that is, you know, definitely a question out there amongst everybody. I had a employee ask it today. So as people, I think, especially as time goes on, I think we'll get everybody in, and you know, people will do their very best. I can see the community really practicing wearing face masks, I think, really well right now. And I think our data in our county is proving to remain relatively consistent, and that's good to see. And so we did have you know, like a staff member come in today and say, I've been wearing the face mask. It is hard for me to wear it for an 8-hour shift. And I think we will get more of that. And so in order to wear that face shield, you know, the first order is always the mask. So the letters 8, 1 through 7, that's what we would like to see first. That's what's part of the executive order. So we're striving to wear those types of masks first. If those types of masks become problematic, then we need to offer some alternative. We can offer an alternative, and the alternative is a face shield. But that doesn't mean that you stop trying to get the face mask not to be problematic. And so, like, when I was talking to the staff member today, we proposed, you know, like coming up with a split, you know, for 2 hours you're wearing the face, you know, talking to them, how long do you think you can wear it? What's been comfortable for you? And, you know, how about if you go 2 hours after learning that comfortability range, go 2 hours with the mask, and then how about an hour with the face shield? So it's trying to, you know, work with people who are having problems wearing numbers 1 through 7, and giving them a healthy option. But still, the goal, and still should continue to be revisited, that those masks should be the goal. So for both staff and students. So we work with people when they say that it's problematic, but then we also try to get them to continue to stretch their levels in hopes that we can get everybody comfortable wearing that mask. And then in this policy, it also talks about exceptions, when you can remove it. And so there are times when you can remove it. And so when you're doing the following types of teaching, a teacher in any grade may wear a face shield when the face covering may impede the educational process. So maybe for a student in kindergarten, when they're learning their sounds, it could be a student who is receiving speech services, who needs to see lip and tongue and mouth placement. And so lots of different reasons to remove that for a short period of time. And then I know that one of the biggest things of this policy is like, what do we do in order to enforce this type of policy? And so here is kind of the short, I'll just kind of paraphrase it. I've listened to the governor and MDE do at least 3 different full 20-minute sessions on this piece. And so, like I said, we're trying to get everybody to wear the face mask. You're trying to use your positive behavior intervention strategies in order to increase their usage of those face coverings. If they can't, and they're not being successful, or they are refusing, you know, the face shield is a healthy alternative while you continue to work on it. And then if there's still refusal, it's not to say one and done and we automatically offer them distance learning, but it is, we all need to know, and we need to communicate to our families that ultimately, if a child refuses over and over again, and after we've tried our positive behavior intervention strategies like we do for any other behavior, then we can ask the family, or we can tell the family that distance learning is their option at this time. You wouldn't want to do that as in a gotcha mode. You would want to do that in any type of behavior meeting that you set up in order to get a change of behavior. So that's a big question that I know staff have had, principals have had. And then we did add one piece that to this policy of our own, and that's on yellow on the third page. I'm sorry, the fourth page. So like as we look at implementation, MSBA used some similar language, but we thought we'd reference our policy 504 specifically and state exactly what it says in there. So policy 504 talks about two things. It talks about an exempt form. So there will be students who are medically exempt. There will be staff members who are medically exempt. We already have one staff member who has been working with us in the summer who is medically exempt from wearing a face mask. And so we worked with that person to wear a face shield, and that helped alleviate some of the stress that the parents had when they didn't see a staff member in a face mask. So people are starting to see face shields as that healthy alternative, which that they are intended to be that. But we will have people who can't wear the cloth mask and they have a specific reason. For those people, we shouldn't be putting on a behavior intervention strategy. We should be allowing them to complete the exemption form, and the exemption form is linked in this policy and linked on this agenda. And I will have Jill open that up first so all the people can see that. So this is not for people who have problems wearing it. This is for people who have a medical diagnosis, and so they would be exempt from it, and they would be able to complete this form with their family.
Give me just a minute here and I'll pull that up.
Okay.
I'd like to make an addition to this policy.
Yeah.
I think we should make it a mandatory that all of our wonderful administrators have to show their beautiful faces on these Zoom calls, since other people have to.
That's weird. That was seriously going through my brain too right now. I was looking at everybody. Gavin heeded the challenge and he came on. I like it. All right, so this is a face covering exemption form. Jill worked with area administrative professionals to, I think a couple of school districts are using a very similar one. So thanks, Jill, for grabbing this for us. But it just talks about, how to become exempt and what a student and family needs to do in order to be declared exempt. And really, it's about the medical diagnosis. So we'll make sure that Barb makes this available for our administration to use. And then I think that's something that, as we have in the policy, I don't think it's something that we need to get out to all of our families ahead of time, because really we want there to be a clear definition and difference between problematic and medical diagnosis. So problematic, we are working with and trying to use our teaching skills in order to increase the usage, and then the medical diagnosis clearly allows a child to be exempt. And so then the other thing that I just wanted to, the last thing I wanted to address from this policy is All face coverings will also meet standards of student dress standards, policy 504, which states objectable emblems, badges, symbols, signs, words, objects, or pictures on masks communicating a message that is racist, sexist, or otherwise derogatory to a protected minority group, evidences gang membership or affiliation, or approves, advances, provokes any form of religious, racial, or sexual harassment and or violence against other individuals. So any covering that does any of those will not meet our standards, and we would immediately refer to our discipline policy. And we will need to know that. Obviously, if you watch social media, you see adults do not so smart things out there, and we just should prepare for students to potentially do that, hopefully through proper teaching and training, and all of us just owning the mask like it's part of our wardrobe will make them more natural and part of for the culture for whatever time being we need to stay in this executive order. So right now this executive order doesn't have a time limit on it, and so I think this is a good policy because it really helps guide a legal standpoint on this scenario, so that there's no guesswork. It's all right here.
Eric, on the medical exemption form, it said K through 12, but that would not include the C5 students, I believe.
Okay. Hey, yeah, great catch, Joe. So we should add all the way through our 21 on that form, because we have students that are in the program that Joe's talking to, a C5 program, all the way to 21. Great catch, Joe. Any questions on this absolute new policy? I know that some leadership teams already grabbed onto it as soon as I got it and started talking about it. It is definitely a piece of worry throughout our community. But the more you travel around, the more you see even young children masking up and really not having as hard a time as I think we think they are going to have. That doesn't mean that I know that our community oftentimes takes on an overarching feeling about masks, and I think by the early stages of COVID, it seemed like our community was wearing masks less, but I have seen that increase in a great awareness and response to our governor. So I do feel like we're in a good state. I know Joe Kunkel was traveling in different states, and he was talking about a particular state that really couldn't even tell COVID was going on because there weren't anybody in masks, or very few people. So I think our state is responding well, and I have to commend our families of Wright County, because I feel like they understand the importance of keeping our children healthy so that they in return can come to school and keep everybody else in school healthy.
Do we have a plan if students forget their mask, or staff? I mean, are there going to be extras, or how does that work?
Yeah, there'll be extras, not only that the state have provided, but as a school district, we have been purchasing extras with those CARES dollars as an early intervention before we knew the state was going to purchase staff and students some face masks. We'd already been purchasing using those CARES dollars in order to prepare for that very thing.
Eric, can I just make a comment kind of off topic here? Sorry. I just want to give Joe a shout out for everything that he's done with transportation. I don't think we've really outrightly recognized him for everything that he's done with Hoagland and all the good things that they've done to make this. I mean, every decision we make, there's a change in transportation. And I don't think I've heard Joe say once we can't do that. It's always been, we'll figure it out, or he's provided more opportunities for the district and stuff. And for him and his business and company to step up like that is unbelievable for our community and our district. And I just wanted to give him a little recognition for going above and beyond and doing that. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I got a little bit of work in both policy so far, and if anything comes up between now and our next school board meeting, don't hesitate to bring that back to me, and I can look at that and tweak anything that we needed to do. But this was first reading, and we'll bring it back one more time for second reading at the next board meeting.
Thank
Eric,
you,
is there the possibility, or can we accept in the school district if families are making masks to donate? Is there something that we have for that? I know there was quite a contribution from a lot of the people in Monticello for that. Is there something that we could put up so people know where they can drop those off if they're able to be accepted?
Sure. We have accepted, probably, about 500 donations so far.
Oh,
But
wonderful.
we haven't solicited yet. So yeah, I don't even know what, I'm not sure that we have the need yet because of that order that we did place, but it would be something that we wouldn't let that order dwindle down too far before reaching out to the community in order to get that any problem that we would experience. So that's a great idea. I don't know that we have the need yet because of the state's order plus the order that we did as a district. But yet and the ones that have already been donated, but it could be something that we would do.
That sounds great. It's great that we don't have to yet, but I just know from so many posts before that there are so many individuals in Monticello that are amazing, and just when the need arises, they are right there with them. So that's something to just keep in our back pocket too.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Great idea.
Okay. Now, Tina and Eric for the presentation and resolution relating to increasing the general education revenue of the school district.
I'm going to do a short presentation, and it kind of connects back to what we have been, what we introduced last time. And then this will be our second time at a formal board meeting talking about the potential of going for an operating levy. And then I'll let Tina bring forth the numbers if you so choose to vote on that tonight. We would be able to meet our deadline, and we would be able to ask the community for a specific dollar amount and move forward with that. So I'll start out with just, looking at, this opportunity as, I think, a crossroads in education. I think it's important for us to find the right path forward through investment and innovation. So not just get stuck on the monetary need, but let's look forward to gathering our community in hopes that we can stand together into the betterment of our most precious commodity, our children. So really trying to use the moment of the times to connect the funding need to the whole global need that we have. So next slide, please. So education cannot, should not, and will not look the same as we move forward. We're finding that out. Each one of us, our jobs have changed, and we're trying to problem solve to put forth the very best educational programs that we have been putting forth, but maybe reimagining them or tweaking them a little bit. And we all know that not only the financial constraints that our district's been through and cutting large amounts 3 out of the 4 years, but we're also faced with a worldwide pandemic and obviously a call to equity across our nation is really putting us in that crossroads and putting us in a spot that I think our community would at least like the opportunity to rally behind. Next slide. So just a quick refresher, the next bullet point is going to start with a little bit of our monetary challenges that we've been facing and had to meet. And as I went around the community, go ahead, Jill, next slide. As I went around the community to ask people about what they thought about the potential of running a referendum, a lot of people really didn't understand how we have been cutting large amounts of dollars for 3 out of the last 4 years. We were able to maintain a little bit of stability this year, but the 3 previous years, we reduced our budget by $3.2 million. And I mean, we're not a huge district. We're a medium-sized district, but to make those types of concessions, we have had to cut a lot, and it has been on the backs of our people. And I do believe that the time is now to be able to not only look at that as a huge piece of the puzzle, but to also look at the call to action for equity. There are a lot of things that we can continue to learn as a staff. We have students. Our population in our Monticello School District is ever changing and growing, and so our students who are non-white, we are around that 10% mark, and it continues to grow. And so it is important to to make sure that we are learning about all different types of students, adding programs when we can. And if you remember back to last school board meeting, we talked about taking control of our own checkbook, and we talked about adding the different programs and funding sources that we have been adding. We're really proud of that, but it really hasn't equated to the general budget. It's just offered more programs and more services for our students, but really hasn't helped us build our general fund like we would like that to grow. And then the last reason that puts us at a huge opportunity in our district, and that's the pandemic. As we've been prioritizing social emotional learning the last couple of years, we have to know in our hearts and have to know by statistics and data across the nation that our children are in a crisis situation with this pandemic, and they were prior to that. Classroom teachers have been seeing more social emotional needs, more students needing IEPs, more students needing a 504, more students on medication, more students coming from household, one parent household, students coming from homes where their a parent is incarcerated. There's so many different things that teachers are juggling. We used to be able to teach our content, our craft, and we'd have a few cases per classroom to be able to really dive into that social emotional needs. And now classrooms are reaching that 50% plus of students who really need that extra attention. So adding that curriculum the last year has been absolutely important. But this pandemic is going to do something to the social and emotional needs of our students, and we have to be prepared for that. And the only way I believe to be prepared for that is to stop putting it on the backs of the few and to be able to spread that out with an operating levy. Next slide, please. Redefining, but keeping our core beliefs the same. So as a district leadership team last year, we developed these priorities to guide us so that they are a compass, they're our internal compass. We're not talking about things and going everywhere. We're trying to use these 4 priorities, dial in our compass, and make sure that we stay within our means to deliver programs that meet and exceed the 4 strategic priorities. But I really believe in the work that our district leadership team, which is comprised of mostly teachers and a few admin, but really developed this as a visual for us to guide us no matter what problems or challenges we're faced as a society. So we're going to keep building capacity of our staff and our students. I think as we look to and ponder, you get to ponder one last time. Is now the right time? And I think using the word investment really helps me realize that there's never going to be the perfect time. Others are facing the same challenges we are, but we are the investment in the future. The school board starts by providing that umbrella decision-making process with policies and budget and setting budget. And then you have your administration and all of your different employee groups to truly help build our students and help them grow and reach the full potential that they can reach. And I think their potential is waiting for us to be innovative, and students, they are waiting for us to continue to grow things. Students are so capable of so many things. I know oftentimes as leaders in the district, or you hear this phrase in classrooms, but teachers and principals, they're saying, let them lead, let the kids lead, because they have some amazing abilities. And I think if we don't continue to grow our programs, we'll be a district that they're not going to want to flock to. And so right now, being innovative and asking the public to potentially fund a new operating levy, I think is an investment in their future. And I think that's the way we can all look at it. Next slide, please. What are some of the things that we're going to market, and some of the things that we need to that we have in front of us right now. But nature-based education, we have opportunities to grow online programs and keep students here. We started this process pre-COVID. I've been meeting with high school counselors and principals for a little over a year, talking about how to grow the online program. Obviously, then COVID hit, and it makes us, have to do some of these things at accelerated rate. Just like the nature-based education, we would have taken a year to plan that, but it was on our horizon to continue to grow it from the preschool, which we did take a couple years to plan, and we had staff members do site visits. But if we don't start to grow these things at a little bit more rapid pace, how do we know those students aren't going to leave and never come back? And that's the thing that I will be 100% honest with you. Fear does drive me a little bit now. If I've been asked to run and be the superintendent of this district, I know that in order to keep people employed and to keep us moving in the right direction, that we have to be innovative, and we have to be that spot that families have a comfort level with coming back to. We have built amazing relationships, but at some point, those amazing relationships will only get us so far, because that's what we should be doing as a school system. And so we also need to extend and take those amazing relationships and continue to build things. And so I believe that an operating levy will give us the funding sources to do what we need to do to build back lower class sizes, which is going to be number one. But it will all, and obviously with lower class sizes, we'll also address the social emotional needs. And so as I went around the community, that's the two things that really get a lot of head nods from our community members. They want to see us have the lowest class sizes possible, and they want to see us have social and emotional needs being met, because they're feeling them in their place of business. But above that, we also have to know that we have to take next steps to meet all of our students where they are and help them prepare for college and career readiness, so that they know when they come to Monticello, they're not only investing in themselves to get through something they have to do, but they're investing in their future and something that they get to do. And that's an important piece to continue to grow. And then I think as we look at this picture of some students at Lake Mariah, that can tie in two things. It can tie in, the curiosity of kids into a nature-based education, but it also can, show the need for increased opportunities for movement across the district. And so to be able to meet kids and be able to structure our school days so that there are more opportunities to move, I think is really important in our district. And the more you do studies on countries that are succeeding right now, one thing that you can see countries that are succeeding with adding movement every hour, and you can see countries that are potentially succeeding, usually in communist countries, that add a lot of time to a day. I don't think that's the United States. We're more, we should be looking at more meeting kids where they are developmentally, And so I think through our innovative programming, we can do a lot of developmental, add a lot of developmental programs for kids. Next slide. And then I just, I think I've already kind of talked about this, but just looking at, the last couple moments here, just to think about, the decision that you get to make as a school board. Think about, I know that it's going to be work, but that's work that I feel will be work well spent. I'm willing to lead it. I'm willing to be that voice. I've already had at least, let's see here, 6 full meetings with civic organizations or smaller groups. And there is a mixed, there's a mixed bag out there. There's people who don't feel like it's the right time. But there's also people who shake their head and nod and understand that, there really isn't a right time. And we would be investing in kids. And if we can get our teachers, our employee groups, our families on board, that's a big piece of the puzzle. So if families and teachers and staff members believe in running and operating Levy, that voice is going to be strong, and that voice will help prepare us and lead us to a brighter future, I believe. I think last page here just shares a fact sheet. So it would be a marketing tool that we could use to get out there immediately after a vote, if the vote was yes. And so what would we do with that money specifically? Because people want to know that. A $6,044,546 referendum on November 3rd. What would that do for our district? Well, it would, offer those classroom benefits that I've already talked about. One thing I didn't talk about, one thing that is important to stakeholders, we've heard this, I've been doing community chat groups, coffee chats with community for 2 years now. And one of the things that bother people are, some of our walking areas that are a little bit challenging. And then also some of the longer bus rides that some families feel it's not equitable to have students on buses for that long period of time, even though Joel and I kind of laugh once in a while because we know that like when you move out to a certain distance, you kind of have to equate that. But there is some things that we could do to tweak and to add a couple bus routes to soften and start out students' day on a better note and provide them safer transportation. And that's something that we would like to do with this. And then to continue to grow innovation and technology. Obviously, we're getting a big bolt with CARES dollars for new devices across our district. So we've already received $1 million in CARES money. The county is working with us to come up with a specific dollar amount that could be around $500,000. And then last week we were also awarded some CARES money that they've given us an amount, but it hasn't been officially adopted by the state yet. But that could be around $1 million too. So a lot of that money is one-time money coming into bolster technology and to help set us up the best we can for infrastructure. But once we get that stuff going, there is a lifespan. And so those things are only going to make it as long as those devices make it. And so in that neighborhood of 3 to 5 years, and then we'll be, needing to supplement or to keep and maintain the effort that we've provided with those CARES dollars on our own. And so that CARES dollars is going to help us through this difficult time. Any expenses accrued, and especially highlighting safety, and you heard about that in a little bit. But to maintain that is going to be very challenging, and we have to prepare for that. And the only way to prepare for that is to be able to increase our revenue or cut expenses. Well, we've been cutting a lot lately, so I don't know that that's always the best option. I think that circle on the right of this flyer talks about if this fails, what are we going to do? And we know that next year, If this fails in the spring, we are facing $1 million worth of cuts. And I don't want to see that. I think we've cut enough in this district, and we're trying to find all the sources of revenue that we can. But there are times when I think it is okay to ask for help. And I think we are at that moment to ask our voters to rally as a community together to do something for our future. So this is what I'm proposing tonight. And then I would like Tina just to show the resolution and the tax impact to be able to make your final decision.
So Jill, you bringing up the resolution?
Yes. Can you see that okay?
I don't see it.
Okay. How's that?
Yep. So in the past, we talked about levying to the max, and what that estimate would be per pupil unit is $1,299.12. That would generate the just over 6 million that Eric was referencing. So we had a resolution drafted by Dean's Knutson Flynn attorney. They've been handling our election processes in the past. So this is a resolution for you to read out if we're going to ask the voters the maximum amount. It also in there references a 6-year term. This falls in line with the existing operating levy that we have. You could, do any sort of length of time for operating levies, but I think it makes the most sense to do a 6-year term where it expires at what's already in place, so that once, if this was approved and they're both in place and the 6 years is up, the board at that time can decide to renew what's in place or maybe do a lesser amount depending on what the environment is like, what school funding's in place, and make those decisions at that time. It's hard to know even a year from now what can happen. So definitely 6 years from now, it'll be totally unknown. And then the tax impact, I don't know if you have that, Jill, or not, but some of the monthly tax impact was on that fact sheet. Some small increases, I believe, between 20 to 40 bucks per month, depending on the house value.
Thank you, Tina, for putting this together, and thank you, Eric, for your presentation and all that you have done on this. I know it's a difficult time to be asking people for more money at this point, but I also know that we've been facing more cuts, and I just really don't know what we would be able to cut without seriously impacting our district. So, board members, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Tina, can you remind me when our last referendum expired?
The current one in place?
Is it the current one we have in place? Is this the one that we voted on to cover the new facilities and security of the schools, that sort of thing?
Yes.
So that's,
And we had, I think in 2007 or 2008 was the time before that you had an operating referendum question. So I believe it ended that one a year early, and we did the 2015 one in place of that.
so it's been about 5 years since we've asked.
Yes.
Okay. Can you remind me the total dollar amount of our last referendum?
Well, at the time, it was $775 per pupil. But last legislation session, the state converted $300 of our per pupil operating levy to the local local optional revenue levy component. So it changed $300 of it from a voter approved amount to a non-voter approved amount. So right now, so it would have been just over, I think, $800, but now with that conversion, it's just over $500, maybe $20 or $30 per pupil. And with this question, it also has the inflation factor on it.
Well, I mean, if you take a look at the bullet points on the brochure that was posted, or the information, general information, I mean, those are some very important items to our district right now. Obviously, class size has gotten to a position that we don't feel comfortable with. If you look at our assessments and our test scores, they've been gradually decreasing, or we've been scoring lower, and I think that's a direct correlation to having larger class sizes. And, you know, I mean, maybe there's data out there to prove me wrong, but I think if you just look at the increase in our class sizes according to the decrease in our test scores, I think you can see they correlate quite equally. We talk about mental health. We're not doing our kids any favors by them out of.
I think he froze. Jeff?
Sorry, I disappeared. Wow, if only it wasn't that, if only it was that easy all the time, huh? I think if you look at a huge discredit that we've done to not only our students in our district, but also to students and young people across the country, is the topic of mental health. And we keep pushing it down the road and pushing it down the road and hoping it's going to go away. And it's not going away. And our young people are dealing with more issues in their lives than they've ever dealt with before, and more things going on. And if we don't do something to help them with their mental health and help them find ways to be successful and to cope with mental health and find them solutions, then it just continues to get worse. So I think it's a huge thing that we have to move forward with the mental health issue, and we have to give our students help and give them the ability to solve issues or process and learn to do these things on their own right now, instead of waiting until it's too late. And kids leave high school and some of them will never have resources to ever get this help ever again. And if we can provide these resources and start to put them in the right direction now, who knows the difference that we can make in some of our students. I mean, obviously, activity fees is huge. We have some parents that pay a lot of money in activity fees. And if you decrease activity fees, I mean, I have a feeling that if you can put it in a position where the activity fees can decrease, that it's saving enough money, you'll probably make it up by paying, you'll save more money than you would pay in taxes. So I think that's, something we strongly need to consider looking at that. There's just a lot of good things in this, and it's up to us as school board to be held accountable for doing these things and to put in these dollars where we say we're going to put these dollars. And if you look in the past, we've done that. If you look at what we proposed in our last referendum, we put dollars into facilities for kids. We put dollars into more security. We increased our technology. When you look at your one-on-ones with all the students in the district that they have right now. And so I think we've been a good steward of our money, and I hope the district trusts us to continue to do that. And I think if we can move forward with this, I think it'll be an amazing opportunity for us to move forward as a district.
I agree, Jeff. There's many things on this sheet. There were a lot of feedback items that a lot of the stakeholders in the community, parents, even students themselves, teachers, many, even the businesses, and I think it's captured quite a bit on here. And I agree that we do have to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that it gets done. In the past, we've done a great job of that. Moving forward, I totally agree that we know we can do this, and the best thing is all of it's going to be for the kids themselves, our future in the community.
Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and read it. We'll give Jennifer a break on this one. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 882, State of Minnesota as follows. The board determines and declares that it is necessary and expedient for the school district to increase its general education revenue by $1,299.12 per adjusted pupil unit. As provided by law, the ballot question must abbreviate the term per adjusted pupil unit as per pupil. Additional revenue will be used to finance school operations, and the property tax portion thereof will require an estimated referendum tax of approximately 0.19706% of the referendum market value of the school district for taxes payable in 2021, the first year is to be levied. The proposed referendum revenue authorization would increase each year by the rate of inflation be applicable for 6 years unless otherwise revoked or reduced as provided by law. For this purpose, the rate of inflation shall be the annual inflationary increase calculated under Minnesota statutes section 126C.17 subdivision 2B. The question on the approval of this referendum revenue authorization shall be school district question 1 on the school district ballot at the special election held to be approved said authorization. The special election is hereby called and directed to be held in conjunction with the state general election on Tuesday, the 3rd day of November, 2020. This date is a uniform election date specified in Minnesota statutes, section 2058.05.
Second, this is Missy.
Okay, resolution read by Jeff, seconded by Missy. We'll do a roll call. All those in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Missy?
Aye.
Candace?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jennifer? Aye. Resolution passes 5-0. Okay, back to Eric for the COVID-19 update.
Yeah, we're just going to kick it off here. We brought this forward to the board for discussion. We had a great discussion last meeting, but we just can't, let our guard down when it comes to COVID. We have to be prepared. We have to keep moving all the huge pieces of the puzzle forward. Tonight's another big night with that. So we're going to do a short presentation and where we get to unveil something new that our buildings and maintenance and Dina have been working on. Specifically, Dave Phillip is going to be coming forward with an idea that he's wanted us to be able to pursue here for about a month, if not longer. And now with that new round of CARES dollars coming in, we're going to be able to make our school district one of the safest districts in the state. Pretty happy about that, probably the nation. So we're going to get to that here in a second, but today I'll just kick it off with that little teaser. We're going to talk a little bit more, or we're going to talk more about COVID-19 preparations. And Barb's going to kick us off with slide 2.
So this is a repeat from our presentation at the last board meeting. It kind of captures the big ideas of the 3 instructional modes that we've been asked to prepare for. And that is face-to-face learning when it is safe to do so. This is the model that MDE and MDH will recommend when our numbers show that it's safe to do so. All safety precautions will be enforced when we're face-to-face, which would include masks, self-reporting checklists, quarantining, and response guidelines per MDH, and ongoing and daily cleaning, along with encouraging hand washing, having hand sanitizers available, and all the things we've been learning about slowing the spread for COVID. The second mode is hybrid learning. And when face-to-face is not safe and our numbers indicate that we need to take more precaution, we will move into hybrid learning. And remember, we discussed last time that hybrid at the elementary will still have students coming every day, but they will be broken into smaller groups and they will be spread more throughout the building so that we can maintain all the safety precautions along with additional social distancing. And then should our numbers indicate, we need to be ready to move into distance learning and to do it even better than we did it last spring. And we're confident that we have trainings in place. We have teachers as coaches that have been working to set up some guidelines and some consistency of platforms and just a whole variety of other things. So we've been busy preparing for all 3 of these modes of learning and instruction and keeping people safe at the same time.
All right, next slide, Jill. So I just want to give everybody a timeline of events. I know when I did this earlier, people appreciated it. So across the district, and we want everybody feeling comfortable, because it doesn't feel comfortable knowing that normally we have things decided, and this year we don't have things decided. So that's not comforting. But the comfort hopefully will come in when staff understands that the timeline, we are following a timeline, is we're trying to be both aggressive and making decisions, but not too aggressive where we get out in front and lead us in a direction that we have to retract or come back. So this timeline will help guide and give people that reassurance that all these things are being thought of and we're moving them all forward, but we have to have certain pieces of the puzzle in place. So today, was a big day for buildings. They started working on their staffing. So getting the students that compiling all the student data in the student surveys, and then using that to drive what class lists are going to look like was the first step. And then the second step for the next couple days, tomorrow and Wednesday, will be to continue to put together staffing models. So trying to staff all the different programs that we have. So our in-person learning, our opt-in distance program, and then our opt-in nature-based program. So that's coming up the rest of this week. Also, August 19th, continued work from the distance hybrid learning cohort. Barb just talked about that group and the amazing things that they've already done. It's over 30 people coming together for the betterment of our district and making our distance learning and potential down the road online learning programs, either building them or making them better, is going to be absolutely what we need. We will have, expectations to meet from the state of Minnesota. So we know that the governor has told us that what we did last year, he thanked us for moving forward in such a quick response. But parents have said through their surveys to the state that it needs to be better. And so we have to rise to the occasion to make it better. We didn't use a top-down approach to make it better. We used the the people who know best, and we brought forth and put together a team of teachers. And so that's a thing that we did in our district that I'm absolutely proud of. And I know that this cohort model isn't going to go away. So Cindy Foshing and Sue Height are leading that cohort this year, and this will be a wave of the future. But doing learning in the summer to unify some of the teaching tools that we are using and unify the haves that we need to do for instruction are going to be something that cohort will do for forever. It's a great model. August 21st, we're hoping that by Friday we can send parent information on welcome back and then student schedules. That one's going to be the aggressive one. That's going to be hard to meet. I'm just going to tell you that right now, school board. We hit just a couple roadblocks today as we started to do some of the pulling out the student information. We just noticed, the numbers don't always align with, you wish you had exactly the right number of students that we had hoped to be in distance learning, and we had the exact number of students we had hoped to be in nature-based, and everything would just work out wonderfully. It wasn't the case, and so we did have to do quite a bit more problem solving today. We'll be back at the board tomorrow to do that. I know that teachers are excited for the announcement of the outdoor nature-based education program, and so are we. We can't wait to pull together a cohort of teachers, both new to the program and then our preschool teacher, Sarah Hagan, and then some specialty training that we're going to bring in. But that time together is just going to be one other cohort that will begin here next week after we identify all of our teaching staff. So big things on the horizon. And then on Friday, we should be able to use Thursday's data from the county, and we should be able to look ahead and start to project where we're going to be the week after our welcome back week. So since I just said that, September 8th through 11th is going to be a welcome back distance learning week. So we're going to get credit for that week, the whole week, as we were in school, but we're going to be doing distance learning model. Buildings are going to have their own schedules, bring small groups of students in. I have had that cleared by the Deputy Commissioner, Heather Mueller. She's excited that we're trying to meet our students' needs, both socially, emotionally, and academically, by gathering some information during that welcome back week. But we also have to declare it as a distance learning week to get our full hours and days of instruction, which is very important in order to get our full funding for our school calendar. And then August 21st through the 25th, so next week we'll be continuing on with our staffing model and building non-certified staff schedules, finding out where our needs are, what our needs are, looking at everything from the educational programs to food service to transportation to cleaning service, but how can we keep moving forward positively? And one of the goals of the district is to keep our staff employed instead of doing a furlough like other districts have done. We're trying to make that commitment to our current staff, but in order to do so, we will have to do some redefining of job duties, or as far as certified staff, it could be grade levels. We're trying to make everything work the best we can, and we should be able to clear up all those answers here within the next couple of days. So this is a big week for us. We look to ease people's mind by giving them assignments, working through assignments if there are questions, getting people the proper training, but just making sure that we get everybody in the right spots. And then August 26th, we're going to do our second parent live Q&A, add some new components to that session. That one's going to be at night. We're going to add transportation. We're going to add some employee group representation, and just continue that positive movement to show that we're all in this together. And then September 8th or 11th, I already talked about Welcome Back Week. And then the last thing on the, I can't see it. Last one is September 14th. School begins using the announced educational scenarios. So we will continue to move all these things forward, and we'll try to stick within that time frame listed above. Next slide. And Barb.
Yeah, and last time we talked about some of the big ideas that we needed to continue to work on. We've had great conversations, great problem solving, just keep moving forward, working forward. But here are some things that are on the horizon for this week and the coming days. We are going to continue to review health expectations for staff and families. And I will be working with Monica and Tana on Thursday for a little while, trying to develop some simplified decision charts and some things that, will help us implement MDE and MDH regulations and communicate them well. So we'll be working on that. Some other conversations that we'll be continuing is to work with EMM, just to keep answering questions, problem solving about everything that we can do to give staff options, keep everybody safe, and work within comfort zones and still do what we need to do to teach our students and meet the needs of our parents. We are going to continue and have just started to work with other employee groups as well. Our support staff will receive some options for the start of their school year, and we will be looking at what our needs are as far as our employee groups by department and area, and continue to do our best to fill all our openings and make sure that we have staff in place when we are ready to go on September 14th. And we have been working with EM and actually had an idea presented to us about creating a possible COVID sick leave allocation. This would be for COVID use only if it was an emergency as needed, and it would be only for the 2021 school year. So those conversations will continue this week and will impact not just teachers, but also our non-certified staff. So we're just going to continue to move some conversations forward, and at the same time, take the ideas in, because these ideas are coming from a variety of different places, really great ideas that we can act on and move forward. We're going to continue to work with the state of Minnesota and the county. We have CARES funding, we have allocations, priorities of what we need to use that funding for, and we just continue to look for resources and work with groups and organizations that are helping us with some of these extra expenses. Right now, our current staffing big need is to hire 6 staff for the outdoor nature-based program. And this is where our starting point is. We're really looking to have certified staff that are embracing this and willing to jump in. And so we're just collecting names on that, and hopefully we'll be able to identify them by the end of the week. And after that, we will need to post for non-certified staff or paraprofessionals for our outdoor-based program as well. So those are some of our priorities as far as all of our other staff openings that are going on, and our substitute positions we've talked about. So very much a work in progress. We just keep moving forward, working on items one at a time and making progress.
All right, next slide, Jill. Next slide, we're talking about Wright County and our Minnesota CARES funding. So just to summarize CARES funding and where it's at right now. So I've already said this once, but just to re-emphasize it. So $1 million, around $1 million secured from the state to be used by July 1st, 2021. So that pot of money has a time frame that's a little bit longer. And so we have had a committee working on that one since July. And then the next amount of money is an amount that's still clearly defined, but I do want to give Wright County an unbelievable amount of credit. Our commissioner, Derek Vetch, came forward with an idea, and I got to be the first person he bounced it off of, but he asked me if I thought school districts would be interested in receiving some of the CARES money that the county couldn't spend. And I told him that, yeah, I thought maybe schools would be okay with that. You're supposed to laugh at that. Of course, we'd be excited about that. And so I very eagerly asked the Wright County superintendents to be able to come together. And our county is putting forth a plan of how to allow us access that. They've already developed the formula. And now they're just doing final tweaks on that formula to make sure that they provide everybody an equal dollar, or the dollar amount according to that formula. And it's for both public and non-public schools. So that's exciting news, and I have to take my hat off and commend our commissioner and his team for bringing that forward. Most counties, or I don't know how many, I don't want to say a number or most, but we are one of the very few. We did, I got a call from the commissioner and said that we were very lucky as a school district that our county was wanting to do this. So that felt so good to be supported by our county. And then last week, like I said, there's an additional $1 million that is to be used by the end of December 31st. That number has been allocated, but we haven't been given the green light to say that it's 100% for sure there. So Tina and I are waiting for that green light. And then obviously, as you can see, there are 2 pots of money that need to be spent rather quickly. And so those will be used more for those either consumable type of products, services, or big ticket items that we can put in that will help us for the future. And we'll be talking about a big ticket item coming up here. Some extra transportation costs, some food service costs, but all those things that we can use that are COVID related, we will take care of utilizing these 3 pots of money in order to preserve the general fund for what its intentions were at the beginning of the school year. With that being said, we have 2 special educational partners, or 1 special educational partner with us, and then 1 employee that's going to come on and share some important information. But first, Joe Kunkel from Hogan Transportation.
Good evening. Part of our development for our plan this year to try to get all the kids to school that need to get there in a safe manner are going to be part of it through our new start times, which has really helped us to keep our buses at a lower capacity. The state has told us that we can have a 50% capacity, so we're going to average 40 to 45 kids per bus. By doing triple routes, which means that we're going to go pick up our middle school, high school kids, then we're going to go back and pick up our kindergarten kids and our nature-based kids, and then we're going to go back and pick up our elementary kids. So really, we spread out 1/3 of our capacity on the new sets of routes. And then depending on how many kids will distance learn, or parents that will choose to bring their kids to school by their transportation, will be at that 50% capacity for our loading. One other thing that we've talked about is that the governor has required masks for all riders of the school bus. We have talked to the school district, and you guys are going to provide masks for buses, so that if we get to a bus stop and a student happens to forget their mask, we don't have to tell them to go back into the house, because many times they're at the bus stop and mom and dad have already left. So we can still take them on the bus. They'll wear them on there. The drivers will wear them. We will change our loading procedures and seating on our buses this year. We're going to load back to front and unload front to back. What that does is it reduces the number of crossovers. So when students are loading the bus, they don't have to pass anybody else. And when they unload, they won't have to pass anybody else. Family members and household members will be encouraged to sit together. But for you guys, it will mean that there will be kindergartners sitting in the back of the bus, which has never happened for us before. Kindergartners always sit in the front, then 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and so on. And the same thing at the middle school, high school. It will be different, but sometimes different is good. I was talking to Eric about a set of individuals that may ride our kindergarten and our nature-based kids buses home. And I think it gives some older students the ability to be mentors to some of our most challenging students on our buses, which is our kindergartners, believe it or not, because they haven't learned how to ride a bus yet. So if we have some older kids on there that can kind of be the bus helpers or the bus peers, that will really encourage those kids to stay seated and stay in the seats they belong and actually get off at the right stops. Unloading, we unload from the front to the back. We'll be doing mostly curbside drop off in the mornings, and we'll be unloading 1 or 2 buses at a time. And then in the afternoon, we'll do stall pickup, and they'll bring them out 1 or 2 buses at a time. The special needs will also fit in that same curbside drop off. We're working with times with all the coordinators there to make sure that we're not overcrowding every single parking lot at the same time. The trickiest part is we don't even know who's coming to school, who's distance learning, who is going to nature-based yet. As soon as we know that, we can fine tune all our times and make sure that all our routes work. One new thing for this year that cross your fingers and really thank Sue Height, because she has been working very, very hard with Jamie Crick. We are going to try to get our student drop-off times and locations in the student portal. So there should be no need for anybody to have a line at any school for them to come see us about, I need my letter of when my bus stop is and the bus number. It would be live time every day. And in the future, I hope in the near future, we'll have the ability to message groups of buses saying, look, we're 15 minutes behind on this route, and they can send messages out through the messaging service the school district uses there. One other thing that we're planning on doing in every bus is we are planning to wipe them down daily. We've checked into some different products, and there are some that will take 24 hours of touching and still kill the virus that are on the COVID list. So rather than us having to wipe down between every route and taking an extra 15 minutes of valuable student time, we'll take that at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day and count that to the driver's time that they have to put in each day. And I don't know if anybody else has any other questions about other thoughts that they have or ideas that we're going to try, but we're certainly going to make this the best year we can with the times that we're in.
Thank you for all that information, Joe. That answers quite a few of the questions that I had in regards to busing. The only thing that, other thing that I was just wondering about was at school, there's going to be like a self-reporting of symptoms and things like that. Is there anything that we have put into place in regards to getting onto the bus, or is that just taking place at the school?
The parents are supposed to monitor their students before they send them onto the vehicles. We'd originally talked about trying to temperature check every kid before they got on, but then we've learned that a fever is not necessarily the highest indicator of COVID, and the timing to try to temperature check 4,400 kids before they get on a bus is really, really problematic in time. The State Patrol is at our place today, tomorrow, and Wednesday doing our inspection. Little shout out, we've only lost 2 points total, and there's about 1,000 per bus available. And it was because there was one seat that was unlatched, or the latch broke when the official pulled on it. But they did check into hand sanitizer, and the State Patrol sent out a memo today that we're not really allowed to put the hand sanitizer in the bus if it slows down the loading process. And I don't know how you would not slow down the loading process if every kid had to stop and use it. We would like to do it, but at this point, the answer is no. If somehow there's a better method to help the kids sanitize before they get on, we'll try that. We just got to know what the answer is.
Thank you, Joel. Anybody have any questions? We can pause right here instead of waiting to the end. Any more questions? Candy, thanks for your question. Anybody else?
I don't have any questions, but I am really excited about being able to see the bus times and everything on the student portal. That's pretty cool.
Me too.
Yeah, so thank you, Joe and Sue, for that, right? You said Sue Height was helping,
She's
yeah.
working with Amy on that, and she's a big part of this, so cross your fingers it all works in the next 3 weeks. Because Sue doesn't know what else she's doing right now, I'm sure. It's just all transportation she's working on.
Yeah, she's a little busy right now with lots of stuff. Well, thank you, Joel. Wonderful job as always. I love getting you in front of our board because, like Jeff Hagley said, you're a very, very well respected member of our educational team. So thank you so much.
And thank you for having me.
Next slide, we're going to go on to one of our resident experts for safety, and that's Dave Phillip. He's going to talk. Him and Tina Burkholder have been working together with all the building heads to come up with cleaning supplies and procedures. He'll talk a little bit about that, and then he's going to lead us into one of his passion areas, and that's to have the safest and cleanest air in the state. And he was going to talk a little bit about that.
So just to introduce this section a little bit before Dave kind of dives in, obviously there are more cleaning procedures that we're doing. It's just hard to condense everything in one specific slide. And we're still working on different priorities in our cleaning areas. We're trying to narrow down the most important to least important because we want to make sure we're disinfecting and cleaning all our areas and trying to schedule and staff appropriately and what we can do and what our needs are for the things we can't get done. We're also having, like I mentioned in other meetings, we have hand sanitizers strategically located in all of our buildings for staff and students to access, like by main entrances, hallways, bathrooms. We have our hand washing posters that we'll have in each of our buildings, both in English and Spanish for people to see, because that's one of the things we need to practice every day, multiple times a day, is to practice good hand hygiene. So we're still a work in progress, but I'll let Dave kind of highlight some of the areas that we know, and some of it might pertain more to the middle school, but in general, this is kind of what we're planning on across all buildings.
Well, as you guys can follow, basically our procedure, we have had to, flexibility is going to be the name of the game. We've had to adjust some shifts. We've had to put some teams together to move through an area faster and cover all the bases because obviously the key word is disinfect. And sometimes it's hard to make that choice because if we build up dirt in an area, it kind of you just subconsciously assume we're not disinfecting. So we had to kind of create a procedure where we're able to maintain the cleanliness that we do and still disinfect. So that's kind of created a team clean mindset, and that's taken some adjustment, but everyone's on board with it. And I think we have a really good unit for understanding the flexibility that's going to be necessary for this year, at least. So we will be moving through constantly. If we have 6 classes a day, custodians will be moving through the halls 6 times a day, emptying trash, wiping down door handles, panic bars, any point of high contact, handrails. We've already deactivated all the spigots on the water fountains. So now all we can do is fill water bottles, and then we will still be wiping those through as we pass. We've done a lot of work on trying to find the fastest activating chemical. This Titan that you see listed is a tablet. Now this tablet goes into just a spray bottle of water. You let it dissolve, spray it on, and it kills COVID in a minute. So literally by the time you're done spraying and wiping, you're done. There is a little concern with any of this that we build up something called bioload, which is just oversaturating an area with disinfectant to the point where it's no longer doing its job. So at least once a week, at least here, we want to go through with hot soapy water and clean off all that bioload and then come back and re-disinfect for the following Monday. We think we'll make it work. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's a different curve. We all have to learn, this type of work. Everyone kind of gets in a mode and they're kind of used to their own pace, and this is going to change everything. But everyone is really on board with whatever we need to do to make it work.
Yep. So with what Dave was talking about, the team mindset, like in the past, we've had certain custodians assigned to certain areas, where now, you know, one person might be doing the floors, one person will be doing the disinfectant. And so kind of not being territorial per se in our building, but how do we be most effective with our staffing and what we have to kind of get our buildings clean each day.
We see one person go in, that person will dump the trash, dump the pencil sharpener, while the other person starts sweeping the floor, vacuuming the floor. The person that did the trash and the pencil sharpener will then grab some chemical and some wipes, move through, disinfect all the desks. So that's how we can speed up the process to create the team effect. So we're able to cover twice the building square footage in the same amount of time. And thus, you know, disinfect and clean every day.
Awesome job, you two. Any questions about cleaning supplies and procedures from the board?
I don't necessarily have questions, but I just want to thank you sincerely for going above and beyond and having your team, which is a wonderful team anyway. I always hear great things about our custodial team. But this is certainly a time where we appreciate all the extra effort and everything that you're doing. So thank you very much.
You bet.
And then this next slide, Dave is going to continue, and this is really his baby that he brought forward, and so it's so neat to see him be able to bring this to you here tonight, school board. And at the end of the presentation, there will be an action item because we would need to get some bids, and we'll let him talk about it.
Okay, this is something that came up to me through an HVAC engineer that works at our school a couple months ago. Cold plasma is a system that applies to our HVAC. And as you can read, it's basically just an ion generator. It creates positive and negative ions in the return part of your air duct, which creates a plasma field. Now, any of these submicron particles that move through that plasma field, which would be flu, allergens, anything that causes asthma, COVID, any of these submicron particles now getting encased in an ion shell. That shell enlarges them. So as they move through, they get caught by the filter, where normally they would go through the filter. Now they're caught on the filter. Now that they're caught on the filter, the hydrogen-rich atmosphere of the plasma field opens the shell and kills them. So we totally eliminate COVID and everything else in the air. Now, this is an aerosol disease at this point. We can disinfect desks, we can disinfect chairs, but we can't stop airflow. So what this does is create a safety zone that is mountaintop fresh air. You will be safer in your classroom than sitting in your living room at home. The positive ions even move through the system. So even when it's not up in the air handler, it's still the ions are being dispelled into the classroom. So they work their way and they kill any of these submicron particles in unseen spaces. This is state-of-the-art technology. Right now, there's a lot of school districts getting pricing on it, but nobody's pulled the nobody's pulled the trigger on it. So the one thing this would create for this school district, in my opinion, would be to enrich enrollment numbers, because you will be offering something safety in the school that no other district has yet overcome this. I'll give you some notable clients for this system, starting with the White House, then the UAE Presidential Palace, Google headquarters, Boston Children's Hospital, the Mayo Clinic, the Houston Memorial Hospital, Baylor UMC, Clemson University, Harvard University, and finally 80% of the top 100 performing K-12 schools in Georgia, including the top 10. This in place will help alleviate absenteeism past COVID-19 because if you suffer from asthma, you're going to be able to breathe again. It will stop the allergens that take out a lot of us every spring and fall. I mean, this is the ultimate purification system. So what happens here is CDC guidelines currently are telling us to open our air dampers on our HVAC units to allow more fresh air in. The problem with that process is we suck in more air than these units can keep up with, and our energy bills go through the roof. This system, we just plug it in, turn it on, let it go. We don't incur any further increases in energy. It actually helps clean our units by usage. And our bills are actually supposed to go down about 30% just because we're cleaning our units as we're running, so they're running more efficient. You've all heard a lot about like MERV 13 filters. The problem with a MERV 13 filter, which is what the CDC is asking us to put on our units, is first of all, the availability is almost non-existent. The cost is double. And our units aren't programmed, aren't built, aren't designed to work with that much air draw. The denser filter stops the air moving through. The motors can't keep up with that. So a lot of times it is involved bigger motors, more expense. This process increases your MERV value 4 to 5. So a MERV 8 filter, which is very common at this school, now becomes a MERV 13 filter. A MERV 11 filter, which serves our entire East End, now becomes a MERV 15, MERV 16 filter. With the test that was done by the National Research Council of Canada, a MERV 8 filter with just by itself, filter only, actually will stop 11% of the SARS virus currently. You ionize that filter, it now moves up to 84% captured. Now that's a MERV 8. So once you move up to the MERV 13 or the MERV 15 with ionization, you're talking 97 to 99% capture of the SARS-CoV virus just by turning on the air handlers. So I honestly feel this combined with good hygiene, social distancing, face masks where you're not able to social distance, I honestly don't think this is hospital grade technology. So I don't think you can have a safer place than the school district would be with the implication of this system. So do you have any questions?
So Dave, I just have to make sure I'm understanding this. This is a lot of information and way out of my wheelhouse. So you're saying that improving this system by increasing the type of filter and adding ionization?
No, Candy. What happens is by adding this, this is an ion generator you install in the unit. By adding that, that increases your current filter 4 to 5 MERV values.
Okay.
So a filter that is normally an 8 has the same filter capacity as a MERV 13 or a MERV 16 filter.
Okay.
So that's how that works.
Okay.
I've been waiting all day to be asked questions, so come on.
So I guess just, are we asking for approval for this, or is this something we're already moving forward with, or Tina?
It'll be the next agenda item. We did some preliminary cost estimates or quotes with a couple vendors, and just to only do the classroom units or units that serve the classroom, it's over the 200,000, and there is bid law that we have to follow where anything over 175,000 you have to go out for bids unless it's under state contract, and I don't believe there's any state pricing on this system. And so the next action item was to seek your approval to call for bids to get this going. Unfortunately, it will not be up and running by the time school starts because we have to advertise for the notice in the paper for a couple weeks, and we need to make sure our specs are in line, so people know what the bid is including. We'll do all units, or we'll first do classroom units to see what that cost is, and do an alternate to see what it is, what's the price to do the whole building, because this is a hefty price tag, but with that second $1 million coming in, it makes it doable.
What
Yeah, I
is
don't
the,
have-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Candace.
This
What,
is something that we'll be able to use CARES money for, right?
Yes. Candy?
what is, moving forward? Is there any higher maintenance or any higher things that we need to think about? I am very in favor of this. I have something, certainly not the system from what I understand, but we actually updated ours at home because of allergies. But maintenance wise, moving forward so that we can keep this going at an optimal level, is there anything that we need to be aware of or be mindful of money wise moving forward to maintain?
Absolutely not. These are maintenance-free units. Unlike
Okay.
UV lighting, which has a 2-year lifespan on a bulb, and you're not able to tell when a bulb is deteriorating in its power. And if you figure they recommend 10 light bulbs per unit at $400 per bulb, we've got 25 units here at the middle school alone. So no, with this system, it's designed to be maintenance-free and provide many benefits outside of COVID.
Right, right.
Well, just like anything, there is a lifespan,
Yep.
but I believe it 20 years.
Yep, and this actually would, when one unit acts up, it's just about the size of a, well, I'd say a fluorescent light ballast, but that may not give you a lot of relationship, but it's not very big. So really, it's just a matter of detaching it and putting on a new one. These don't require any special programming. They're actually held onto the unit with rare earth magnets. You have one on each side of your blower duct, about 2 feet apart, and then it's just wiring. There's no programming. As soon as you wire it in, you turn the unit on and it's working.
I don't have any questions. I think you did an excellent job of explaining it. I'm ready to move forward.
I agree.
Yeah, I have to echo that, Dave. Just an absolute terrific job, and I love the knowledge that you present to the school board here tonight, and the passion that you have had all along this whole summer, knowing that this in your heart was something that you wanted to bring forward. And like Tina said, I wish we could have started the process earlier, but with the price tag, really not knowing if we ever were going to be able to afford it until that last round of CARES money came in. But really, it will clearly set us apart, like Dave mentioned and stated so emphatically. So thanks, Dave. Thanks, Tina.
Yep.
Next slide, please. So a few items for board action tonight. One will come immediately after this presentation, and well, actually 2 will come immediately after, and then 1 is just an FYI. So if we could, the 2 that have agenda items, I'm going to leave till the second, but the first one, the first week of school, just to remind everybody that it's a little tweaking of our school calendar. And I think we have to be ready as a school board to have more tweaking of our school calendar, because it is absolutely imperative that we continue to meet both the number of days, which is 165, and then the number of hours, which can be up to 1,020 hours for students in secondary classrooms. And so it's really important for us to understand that we did shorten our school day. And so there will still need to be some tweaking, and then not knowing what's going to happen with COVID. Like I said, I'm really confident, and I've been happy to see our numbers stick around that that 10 to 12 mark per 10,000, which would allow us to be in a hybrid scenario. And in Wright County, we've really seen that those numbers being very consistent ever since the start of COVID in March. So I think it's really important to know that we've been in consistent numbers, but yet we also have to prepare for times to potentially change. And so the school calendar will need to be, I would say, looked at a couple times this year, but I'm going to start just by bringing the first week of school, which clearly describes that first week as a welcome back week, 8th to the 11th, and it gives the buildings the autonomy to run distance learning week, which will include small cohorts of students coming into the building for teachers to meet with families. And we think that's imperative as a district to start kids off on a slower go. So turning up the dials, bringing students in that week, rather than just sending them all back on that September 8th day or September 9th day if they were kindergarten. We really feel like changing that and allow buildings the autonomy to do what they need to do to keep their students safe and turn up the dial slowly, while also collecting important information. Where did those students leave last year? What do they need academically? What do they need social emotionally? To pause and ask those questions and gather information is imperative. Next, or back to this original slide. So if that's just a tweak of the calendar, it really didn't change any school days. They're all still school days. And so just by changing that to a distance learning week and letting buildings have the autonomy to still conduct and teach their students how to do distance learning in the case we need it, and also collect information about students is going to be our key to that week. And then we've been talking about those building start times, and as a district, as of right now, our teaching staff, our administration, last time during our school board meetings, custodial crew, the maintenance crew, knowing that we have a lot of work to get done, we've kind of started looking at the school day in a little bit different twist than some school districts. Some school districts were increasing the school day and student contact time in order to maintain all the different cleaning procedures that they need to during the course of the day. And we started looking at that a little bit different after different meetings with employee groups. But being able to have a shorter day and allow some flexibility for our certified staff to be able to possibly reduce a transition for their own children and get their work and prepare for their class the way they need to in order to be a highly effective teacher. We felt like was worth listening to. And as we move forward with leadership teams across the district, we really looked at it. Do we want to keep the times the same? Do we want to maybe tweak them? Maybe we had too much time in the day, so reducing a little bit might reduce some anxiety of our students. And or do we want to increase the time? Those were kind of our three options. Obviously, there really isn't too many more. And as a district, we really feel like reducing the amount of school time is an option to bring forward here tonight. And so the student hours are listed at each of the buildings, and we've got them broken down by building with the addition of outdoor nature-based education. So most buildings are in that neighborhood of 6 hours or 6 hours, 7. So our elementary, both of them, Pinewood and Little Mountain, are 6 hours. And the middle school is 6 hours, 7 minutes. And our high school is 6 hours, 15 minutes. And so that should allow us to maintain the integrity of the calendar throughout the rest of the calendar year, but we could potentially look at a couple other additional days in the future that might have to be tweaked. But for right now, this amount of time gives us our student hours and our number of student days that we need. And so I feel confident bringing these times forward as the first step of any changes that might be needed. And so as we go forward now, we will switch gears to the next agenda items. And the next agenda items will call for some action. The first one was Tina's.
Yep, so I didn't have any attachment. It was just, asking you to approve to call for bids on this ventilation upgrade to get this process started.
Make a motion to start the bids for ventilation upgrades.
This is Candy, second.
Motion made by Jeff, seconded by Candace to approve the call for bids on the ventilation upgrade. All those in favor, I'll do by roll call. Candace?
Aye.
Missy? Missy?
Lost her.
Yep, apparently.
Catherine?
Jeff?
Yes, aye. C.
Aye.
Is that Missy?
Yes.
Melissa?
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Okay. Melissa?
Aye.
Jennifer? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And then we need a motion for the approval of the student hours.
This is
This is-
Melissa.
Motion made by Melissa to approve the student hours. Do we have a second?
Candy, this second.
Seconded by Candy. All those in favor by roll call. Melissa?
Aye.
Candace?
Aye.
Missy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Jennifer? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And now it looks like we can call for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Jeff, seconded by Melissa. All those in favor by roll call. Melissa?
Aye.
Candy?
Aye.
Missy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Jennifer? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. This meeting's adjourned at 8:12. Do we want a 5-minute break before going into work session?
Yes.
Okay,
Should we-
so we'll come back. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, should we come back at 8:20 just for simplicity, or is that too much time?
That's fine with me.
Okay. And then just so you know, a little procedure, Joe Rosh, Peter Berquist, and Tanya Schmitz are all teachers in our district, and they are going to join us on the Zoom. it going, everyone? And then Jennifer, when it hits 8:20, you'll just have to start the meeting again, just like we would on any other agenda meeting or any other meeting.
Okay, so call it to order and approve the agenda for the work session.
Yep.
Okay. And my time says 8:20. So I will go ahead and call the work session for Monticello School District to order and call for an approval of the agenda for the work session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve the agenda by Candy, seconded by Melissa. All those in favor by roll call. Candy?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Missy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Jennifer, aye. Motion passes 5-0, and we can start the work session.
All right, so Joe and I talked today, and we talked about having, the opportunity to meet and to take care of the questions as our main priority, but also to allow some live questions that might come in to our moderators, Peter, Joe, and Tanya. And we will then pause and try to dig into some questions the best we can at that moment. Does that sound good then to move forward?
Yep.
Sounds great. All right, so the first question is, what procedure is in place for when a certified staff member tests positive for COVID? Explain COVID leave sick time and the options available for staff members. So when a staff member tests positive, the staff and Minnesota Department of Health should notify the school district. So you never know which one's going to come first, but if a staff member knows ahead of time before the Minnesota Department of Health, we would want both the staff to have responsibility if they know they're positive, and or the obviously we know the Department of Health is going to do it as soon as they can. And then the person that they should go to is the district liaison person is going to be Barb Wilson. And then from there, directives come from the Department of Health, and they will drive the next steps, which will include exclusion and contact tracing. And so, and that is if we need to do quarantine due to exposure. And then the question then is about the different kinds of leaves, and Barb even introduced a new one that she's going to try drive forward here. So we have that one listed, and we will get this list to all of our certified staff members. But here is the kind of the order. So COVID leaves and early retirement options. So that's an option. We've made that available. Then in specific cases, we know there's COVID emergency leave, 10 days. Barb talked about trying to lead a new small amount of days called just a COVID sick leave. There is obviously then it would go to personal sick leave, FMLA, 60 days per year. And then, looking at encouraging different problem-solving techniques, including buddy system for teachers, where they can fill in for each other. This is going to be orchestrated by building leadership. But obviously, buddy teachers can help maintain a high level of instruction for students as well as support teachers' needs. And this may also help to alleviate the lack of substitute teachers. So just to be thinking at the beginning of the year, we want our building administration to create and help teachers create buddy systems, just to be able to help if something comes up where all of a sudden we get a call from the county and says that we need to exclude a certain teacher. we need to be able to move quicker than we ever have before. So it's kind of like when somebody has to rush home because of their own children are ill or daycare closes. We have to be ready to do the same thing for COVID. And so we want to make sure that we bring forth and establish some clear problem solving things on the front end. So those are the list of sick days that people will be able to utilize. Are there any questions? COVID leaves, which includes the early retirement that went out. When that's done, obviously, we move past that and we get into the school year. So then it's COVID emergency leave, 10 days. COVID sick leave, Barb's going to work on that one here this week with you and our school board. Personal sick leave, as we accrue each year. FMLA leave, 60 days per year.
Eric, can you explain this buddy teacher thing? So then, like, would another teacher be in charge of 2 classrooms if we needed? Is that the idea?
Just the idea is just to, we might have to do some, it could be a distance learning scenario. It could be helping answer questions of the front office and parents while we figure out where that teacher needs to go. But just somebody that knows your class, knows it well, so that we can answer questions that might come up for the rest of that school day, and or maybe it might be for a couple school days to really just help that teacher out to, we might have to move that teacher into a substitute situation where they didn't have time to write the normal plans that they normally write, and or prepare for, potentially helping that teacher transition to maybe a distance learning position if they weren't necessarily sick.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question, it looks like, that came in on the chat. So when Eric presented this, the emergency sick leave that the federal government authorized, that's the first one, COVID emergency sick leave. You do not have to use your personal sick leave first. That one is for COVID reason. It would be either for symptoms or quarantine. And it's 10 days to get through that quarantine period. And it does not come off of your personal sick leave account. And you do not have to access that.
Anybody else? All right, we'll move on to the next one. Is there a max number of students a teacher can come into contact with in one day? So like middle school, high school, or specialists. Is there a cap on class sizes? How will the 50% occupancy be followed? So as of now, our Wright County data would say that we have never had more COVID cases than per 10,000 that would have ever put us out of in-person or hybrid learning models since March. So as long as that data stays in check, we would not have a specific number of students. Instead, we are continuing to implement long-term safe procedures like cold plasma, social distancing, wearing a mask, creating classroom programs that encourage outdoor usage. So we've made that concept of a 50-50 classroom open to all teachers so that we can utilize outdoor spaces throughout the school day. And so that's kind of that first section that I'd like to talk about. And then the second is, we had an architect, Wold architect, take the drawings of our school. So they took all of our line drawings and they provided a 50% number for every space in the district. So it wasn't us coming up with the 50%. It was somebody we've contracted with, and they, helped us. They've helped us do lots of things over the years. So, the 50% wasn't. I know that some people might say, well, that's not necessarily 50%. And we are using the guidelines set forth by the state, which was interpreted by an architect company rather than us coming up with that. We wanted to, have professionals do that. It's the same thing for the outdoor spaces. I brought it to an architect in order for it to go to the State Department. We usually don't want to deem ourselves as experts. We want to hire experts to do that configuring for us. And then just, there isn't so the bottom line is there isn't a cap on class sizes, but we can continue as teachers and educators to minimize close contact with students and other adults by following all safety protocols, including, watching our space between you and others, and wearing a mask and etc. So just to, I went through the letter from the county when somebody is, when they're trying to do the contact tracing, and really you're only eligible to be considered on that, at least when we went through it for Eastview this summer when somebody did have COVID. We had one person there had COVID. You had to have had contact with that person, direct contact within that 6 feet range for 15 minutes. And so contact tracing is a little bit more than just like a pass by. And I think sometimes, we forget, that it does take a considerable amount of time to transmit it. Obviously in a classroom with, in there over 45 minutes, that would be one point of contact. So that anybody in your class would be considered within that 6 feet because of the airflow. But it's people outside of that where we can, design schedules to help limit the amount of contact that every staff member has throughout the day. Obviously, specialists, they do see exposure. High school teachers and middle school teachers that have the number of classes that they do, they see more students. That's why we're shortening the day. That's why at the high school, middle school, we're going to that A-B schedule rather than the elementary seeing their students every day. So it's kind of a combination, there's pluses and minuses for the elementary. There's pluses and minuses for the middle school, high school. We're just trying to follow what the state felt, using their professionals felt like was some of the best models, using science for elementary, knowing that they aren't passing it as often. And some of the older students through age 30 right now is the group that's passing it the most. So there's a lot of things that went into that decision, but it's not like Monticello School District making that decision. It's making that decision with the consultation of the state and Department of Health.
Eric,
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of texts just wanting clarification from some of the staff. They just want to make sure that the idea of mega classing or the idea of covering for another teacher, combining classes, that's not the route that we would be going, correct?
Nope, and that's why I was made sure that I didn't say that. That has nothing to do with mega classing. We're just talking about problem solving, being able to talk to the front office, talk to parents, let that teacher who is there go away. We'll get a substitute in there, but that substitute's going to need some consultation of somebody who knows the classroom well. We want to take care of people on the front end, and one of the ways to do that is to set up a checks and balance.
Perfect. Thank you.
The next question: if staff need to take a virtual position due to being high risk, will they be guaranteed their old position once things get back to normal, or if we end up all virtual after a few weeks, months? I think, the first thing on that one, I even saw a couple of you smile a little bit about the normal, but I think there's an assumption that 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 we know what normal was. And first of I don't know that we know what normal is. So what we go back to will be dependent on the need, which is like when we do class rosters in spring for the next year, it's dependent on the need of how to place people. At the high school, it's dependent on need of how people register. That's our class need. So need is what drives what happens for the following year. But if it is a need, absolutely. Why would we take out experts out of their position and plunk somebody in that may potentially is not an expert? So we as long as there's the need, yes, that position will be allocated back to the people who left it. Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to talk about in those areas. Number 4, if teachers switch positions, teaching assignments for the good of the students, or this year just to help out, are they stuck? Can teachers return to previous positions held after the 2021 school year? Let's get our jobs, definitely dependent on need, but we may figure out some things this year that do not work, and we'll make those, changes as quickly as possible. But we also might figure out some things that work. We have never tried outdoor education before from, grades K through 5. So we might have some additional things to program for next year. So yeah, it'll all depend on what's needed for next year. But once again, we're going to try to get people back to the positions where there's a need whenever possible. And, for the most part, especially positions that have been around for a long period of time, you would assume that they're going to continue. So I would think a lot of them will continue, but also a lot of new things with new needs will continue as well. All right. If teachers switch positions, I'm sorry. Number 5, how will we be balancing the workload for teachers if they are responsible for both in-person and distance learning students? And we are, not looking at giving more students than you would have pre-COVID. So, we're not looking at like creating mega class lists of in-person and distance learning, scenarios. So we want to get people in the right places from the start. We have responsibilities given to us by the governor to provide instruction to our students, whether they are at home or in front of us. So we know we have responsibilities this year, and our responsibilities are different than they were last spring. What we did last spring can't happen. That came through loud and clear in the state's report back to us. They appreciated everything we did, but they also know that they want us to continue to improve. So we didn't, start this this summer just planning for that transition ourselves. We employed teachers this summer, and that cohort is going to help set expectations. That's the next lesson that they're going to be on, is looking at expectations. And in order for us to continue to establish what that looks like. I can tell you, like, my own personal opinion, if I was teaching, I would be worried about that as well, because it almost feels like double duties. And hopefully through that cohort and through the revelations of watching people like Sue Height and Cindy Foshing, will be able to gather a good point and move forward with a thing that, with a process that everyone feels comfortable with. If it needs to, as long as we keep in the mind of improvement and making sure that we are continuing to, improve, so that we uphold our governor's requests for us, That's all that matters. So that group's going to work towards setting some expectations. And then we also have to continue to get the right tools and training in place so that we can be streamlined in how that works. Yeah. I might have some follow-up questions, and maybe some specific questions might help us look into that deeper, or just know that we're on the cusp of establishing some expectations on that AB schedule with our cohort. So that's definitely a middle school, high school question as of now.
I think, Eric, it could apply to like our elementary specialists and some special ed teachers too. Like, just we want to make sure that they get the prep time that they need to teach both in school and out of school.
That's true. Yep.
Eric, I'm getting some questions sent to me here. Teachers are worried about teaching a lesson to in-person students, and then is the expectation they'll be teaching the same lesson to the distance learning people, or are we going to hopefully have a system where teachers will be designated the distance learning and we'll have time to do that portion of it as well, if that makes sense? Just trying to handle the in-person, out-person in the same work day.
Yeah, it's definitely new. Obviously, we haven't had to deliver education this way before, and I definitely understand that there's a little anxiety with that newness, but I feel like the support of the cohort is going to help, train, provide support, and to continue moving us along. The CARES dollars and us to purchase equipment is going to help move that along. If I was teaching, I think I would want to do synchronized instruction so that I wasn't doing two sets of lesson plans. But I would want everybody to come to that realization either with that group or on a timeline, because we know what the governor's expectations are, and it would be to make sure that the teachers are the experts delivering the instruction, not the parents. That is an expectation. And then the expectation of exactly what that looks like, I would want it to be not a top-down thing. I really want it to be within, and I want that to draw strength from that group, and so that's what I'm hoping happens.
So, and that's I like what you're saying. The follow-up question that we're hearing is that going to be shared? Is that type of information on either how to teach in a synchronized setting, or is information from the cohort going to be coming before workshop week so teachers have a chance to have their heads wrapped around what's going to be asked of them, or is that something that is going to be rolled out during the workshop week?
I can tell you we're going to take baby steps in everything that we do. So would your expectation on September 14th to be doing synchronized instruction? No, not at all. I would imagine there'll be a timeline laid out, and there'll be tools and training in order to help get at a process that's the best for the teacher and the students. I'm just telling you at first glance, my organizational skills, I don't know that I could be able to keep up both at once, and it would feel like two jobs. And I would want to find the easiest way to streamline that. And I can envision what I think is the easiest way if you give me the tools. But like I said, I want people to come to that together so that we can move it forward together. I feel like that will be the best way for our district.
Do you mind if I add a point here, Eric?
Absolutely.
One of the things that I think we all discovered during distance learning was that on those days when we didn't have a lot of contact with our students, they kind of fell off the face of the earth. At least that's what I saw with my kids. And I really worry about with a hybrid situation, if we teach to the A group and we have like independent work for the B group. I feel like that's not equitable because we found that students in that independent learning group, if they struggled at home, if they struggled with workspace, if they struggled with motivation, if they struggled with any of those things, they fell through. So my goal would be every day, every kid would have contact with their teacher that's meaningful in instruction. And so that's why I like the idea of synchronous instruction, because no matter where they're at, whether they're sitting on their bed or whether they're sitting in front of you, they're still receiving instruction every day regularly. So otherwise, I think it's an equity issue for students who are at home without supervision or without guidance or without motivation. That's where I'm at.
That's a tough one. That's a deep one. But like, we're not doing it to get, alone from the district office. We're doing it with, over 30 people. So please know that that is one that we knew that we were going to have to unwrap at the beginning of the year, and especially as we've, seen the development of the state plans around the middle of July, I should say.
I would just add. Oops, sorry. I would just add that it's one of those, as we talk about, we recognize, and even this conversation tonight, it's a fluid conversation. Things change, things could change at any moment, etc. I would just add, I agree with Cindy's point completely as far as reaching every student. I would add to that a little wrinkle, and that is that the 7-period day is overwhelming for students and staff from an online standpoint. So the idea that we be open to potentially changing as we move forward, depending how life changes, because that's what I think a lot of teachers saw from the 7-period day standpoint at the middle school and the high school, is that there were the kids. If we're trying to reach every kid every day, which of course we're all trying to, there was a feeling of being overwhelmed among students, and that's some of the reason why some of them dropped off. It's just too much. And from an online course standpoint, many of us in this meeting have taken online courses. Imagine having 7. None of us have ever done that. So keep those things in mind as we move forward. Fluid situation.
And I just say absolutely. I think scheduling has been, since I've been here, I've seen schedule changes at the middle school, and I've seen discussions at the high school. So at the district office, I absolutely support creative schedule changes that are for the betterment of our students. And we've seen them come, and we've seen them go though too. So, with that being said, I think both you and I, Joe, have been passionate about not seeing a 7-period day. But within that 7-period day, some of the solutions are also things that have went already by the wayside. They've come and gone in buildings. And so we have to be prepared to I think COVID will allow us to maybe problem solve deeper and stick on some problems longer in order to get some of those things that you and I have talked about for 2 years now to potentially go away and stay away. But schedules are one of those tricky things for buildings because you have usually you have some contract language that stemmed from however the schedule was at the time that the contract was adopted. And a lot of times that contract language stays in there, and it can actually hurt some changes in schedules. And so I think COVID will help us be able to get to the table and problem solve quicker, and maybe be able to come up with schedules that work better for students and teachers and stick around longer too. Next question is, what expectations for staff to carry out standards and curriculum this school year? Obviously, standards are a thing that drive what we do. And so, it will be our job as educators to make sure that we uphold those standards and to the best of our ability, no matter what learning scenario we are in. In most cases, we will be utilizing existing curriculum resources, or we may utilize alternative resources that better suit students' needs. So we always want flexibility for our teachers to be able to. Curriculum isn't just the book. That's a curriculum tool. Curriculum is everything that you do to deliver standards, and all the tools that you have. And so we want that to be able to be streamlined, and we want teachers to have the best resources. And there'll be teachers that come up with some better ways of delivering some of the standards over the course of this school year. There's no doubt. And I think working together in our PLCs to have those discussions and to be able to continue to streamline things in order to teach the essential standards is very critical. So we'll be grading essential standards, and so part of this year we will be looking at not only the standards but also standards work to streamline the standards to make sure that if there are some ones that maybe aren't as essential because they are hit. I went through some essential standards training a couple years ago, and what makes a standard essential is just looking at the scope and sequence of it from grade level to grade level, and if it's hit multiple times with little rigor change, then that might be one that at a lower level that you could not spend as much time on. So there's got to be some play in there too, though. We can't just say, hey, you got less time this year, go ahead and do exactly what you did last year. We want you to not do exactly what you did last year, but start with the essential standards and do that first this year in hopes that we can make improvements on how we deliver education.
Thanks, Eric. Looking at the questions and just thinking about the interest of time, we're more than willing to skip questions 7 and 9.
All right.
For now.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks for doing that, Joe. Keep doing that, whatever you need to do to keep streamlining. You are the monitor and adjuster. So number 8, can families opt out and choose distance learning, then switch to face-to-face at any time throughout the school year? The long answer is families can choose to switch between opt-in programs. We will encourage families and to only switch on quarter break or semester break for certain classes. And I've backed high school administration already, even pre-COVID, when somebody wants to switch and it's a semester class and there's a month left. There's some things that don't make sense. We always try problem solve on a case-by-case basis. At the elementary level, we've never had that problem. We've always allowed about 3 days to get transcripts, to get important information. And when a child registers, we're able to get those students in a little bit quicker fashion. So we would do that at the elementary level while still encouraging it. We're not going to announce that to families. We want it to be quarter break for everybody because it's kind of like anything. The longer you do something, hopefully the more successful. But I also don't want to pigeonhole us into a case if a child and a family are making it miserable for a teacher. I want to be able to respond a little bit quicker with that as well. And so we will use the quarter break as our guideline, but know that it is our responsibility to educate children. So that's the short answer of it. So we'll always try to uphold the quarter or semester, problem solve every case. But it is our responsibility to educate children, and we want our students. We want them to stay here. If some school is budgeted for 100 students to leave, that's almost $1 million. That's $800,000. I don't want to lose $800,000 this year. I don't want 100 students leaving us this year. I want us all working together, problem-solving situations together, and absolutely delivering the best year that that I've ever seen, COVID or not. And I think I know we can do it. And so it will become really real to us how big and problem solving is if we don't learn how to do it on the front end and we decide to wait and do it all on the back end. And I believe back end problem solving is going to equate to student loss and enrollment loss. And all that means is that we're working together to figure out how to cut an additional 800,000. I don't want to do that. I want to problem solve together now. We are at the table. We will be at the table. We will listen as school board, as district office. We'll do anything we need to do to continue being that district that people want to come to and staff want to work at. Number 10, I think we had a whole thing on district mask policy. So hopefully that helps. It's really laid out in policy 809 now that is at first reading. And I will have Jill send that. I know I sent it to all building administrators. I know at least one leadership team has already looked at it, maybe more. But when I was going around to leadership teams that day, I saw one had it up. So I know it's at your building's fingertips, and they could, bring it to you, or I can send it out when I send out all these answers to these questions. What do you guys want? Send it out with it? Okay, I'll keep a running total of.
Yeah, Eric, if you could do that, that'd be great. I think the biggest question that people are having is, the refusal, the idea of if somebody's refusing to wear a mask, especially if we're shortening student contact time, I think the last thing anyone wants to do is to get into a stalemate with a student and have that happen. So I think the biggest concern is just, and it doesn't need to be answered now, but is there going to be a plan in place for what happens when those refusals or things like that come up? We just don't want it to take away from that, the precious contact time we do have with our classes.
Yeah, I think it's like anything, the state has made it clear to, mask is a part of executive order. If they're, if it's problematic, try work with them to get them to wear it using positive behavior intervention strategies is what it's stating in all the state documents. If that's not working, obviously then a shield can be tried as a problematic solution. If that's not working, then, obviously you're working with parents because you don't want to surprise them, but you're working with families to develop those behavior plans like we would for any other behavior. So it's like we have to consider it a new behavior. And, we don't, kick kids out back in the day for, disruptive behavior. We worked with them before we did that. And so that's the same model that we'll have to do is we'll have to work with them, get them to be part of a behavior plan, on a behavior plan. And then if we're not having any success and they're not wearing a shield either, then we can move to distance learning for that child.
Yeah, I would just, oh boy, sorry, we're in a garage. I would just add, we, as a high school teacher, maybe middle school a little bit, we always, a cell phone policy is a good example, where cell phone policies are become cat and mouse a little bit. I think we have a good policy at the high school, but everyone sees it a little differently. Okay, a high school class, you have 5 minutes left of class. If you want to just spend some time on your own, a kid takes out a cell phone. You see where I'm going with this, where it's kind of the battle that we fight or potentially selectively fight. And you don't have to comment on this at all right now, but I just want everyone to think about when it comes to masks, it can't be a selective battle. And that's the type of support I think that teachers want. We're thinking about our students, we're thinking about our colleagues, and we're thinking about, every single person that walks in the building. So I think the cell phone policy, there's somewhat of an equivalent, but all of a sudden, someone getting sick isn't part of that equation. And that's just something that keeps coming up among our teachers. I think it's just a major concern for all of our administrators to think about, contemplate, and be prepared for.
I think it's definitely a unified message and it's a unified approach. Administration will definitely be there to support, but then it's each one of our jobs. If once that policy is given to everybody, it's our jobs as everybody. So it starts with teachers. If one classroom has different expectations than the other, that's usually where the problem happens and why that 5 minutes is even considered by a student. And so we need to make sure that that unified approach is being accepted by administration and teachers. And that's the only way you can deliver a unified approach. So I wholeheartedly agree, but I also see it as like we sometimes are our own worst enemy of what we allow in our, even if it's just for a few minutes, because pretty soon those few minutes do turn into other people's challenges or problems in a next period or next class period. So unification on that is going to be key. Yeah, so number 11, if a teacher chooses distance learning, is there a possibility that they will be expected to teach more than one grade level? Remember, I kept hoping that those numbers would just be awesome. Well, we started playing around with those numbers today, and they're not necessarily awesome. But, you know, when I left the whiteboard tonight, we didn't have anybody teaching more than one grade level, but we're not done yet either. We still have some other things to put into place. So we're trying not to have that happen. We get this question. We would rather not have, you know, somebody teaching multiple grades, but yet, you know, we also know that it could happen. And we have people in the district right now teaching multiple grades. You know, we have elementary teachers who have done multi-aged experiences. And so it's not like we've never done it before. We would rather have it be a, you know, that choice or that model that a school district pilots. But we also have to know that if that's where the need is, you know, we have to be prepared for that potentially to happen. Number 12 is if students are eating lunch in classrooms, what precautions will be taken for students with a food allergy? So if a classroom is eating in the classroom, the teacher will be expected and we'll have Tana do training, but there would be a peanut safe zone, just like we have in the lunchroom. So peanut safe zones are part of our lunchrooms, and if our lunchrooms are extended to the classrooms, we want to uphold the same practices that we've been delivering to our families.
Thanks, Eric. Questions 13, 14, 15, 16 are all cleaning related. So if you could just touch upon you know, the district's plan when it comes to cleaning, just to reassure teachers what to, well, to discuss what to expect as a teacher, but also what type of support there will be in that regard as well.
Yeah. So as you can see tonight, safety is on our mind, and the school board took a step towards delivering hopefully one of the safest environments in the state of Minnesota. And so I feel like that's a huge step. And when you really dive into whether, you know, the transmission of COVID is on surfaces or, you know, airborne, you know, the science behind it and taking care of the airborne first, we feel is the most important. That doesn't mean that surfaces aren't important, but surfaces can, a lot of the surface can be taken care of, you know, by us doing the right things with masks and with social distancing. And then the next tier of cleaning will come in as a collaborative effort. We will have custodial teams that will be up and down hallways to do high surface areas on doorknobs and picking up garbages. Why we think garbages will increase is that we will be going through towels and wet wipes. I know when I get done with a meeting, we always have, you know, the Clorox wipes, and there hasn't been a meeting. I mean, school board members have seen me wipe down tables. Administration see me wipe down tables. It's kind of part of how we do business. Those of us that have been here all summer, so that we don't have to wait for the custodial team when they come through. They are coming through at a more rapid rate, but I also want to be able to use that the room for the next meeting. So there will be some requests of us as, you know, a district to ask our teachers to do the same thing that we've been doing here in the district office all summer, and that is to, you know, wipe down when possible. As Joel Kunkel was saying, there are some products out there that we are, you know, that we are either purchasing or researching that will allow the potential to be killed longer, and so giving a little bit more security blanket. So we're still in all those stages of trying to find out the best. There are districts that are picking things that we can't believe they're picking because they are supposedly they have no COVID, kill rate. So it's really a lot of research right now. Our team led by Tina is been doing an amazing job. So I'm not sure if Tina wants to add anything more on the cleaning, but that's where I would start. Tina?
Yep. So just to add a couple things, I'm meeting with the custodians the next 2 weeks, tomorrow and the next week, to kind of go over what are our priorities. Because there's, you know, just like you, there's only so many of them and how many rooms to tackle, and what are the priorities. Is mowing, for example, a priority versus disinfecting an area? So we're trying to, and so that we're all the same across all building, instead of, you know, I heard Little Mountain's doing this and I hear Pinewood's doing this. So we want to be the same everywhere to all our staff. Trying to look at, you know, what can we do with our staff that we have right now, and then what couldn't we do, and what are some resources that we can tap into. For example, if we're hybrid and we have some para time, you know, their schedule might be longer than the student day. So can we use some of the para time to help with the end of day cleaning of the desk and chairs? Are there some things we can have the students do, like sweeping the floors? Or, you know, the team mentality just kind of came up the last week, where the custodians are trying that, where now we're not area specific, we're more working together, doing certain tasks and being hopefully more efficient. So we're looking at different things. How do we maximize our schedule with the resources we have, and what do we need more to help clean and disinfect every day? What Dave described today was more of the middle school level, since they're in hybrid and there's that full day off, where elementaries, they're in it all day, every day, but they're not moving around like the high school and middle school.
Are we thinking that all classrooms will be equipped with, you know, cleaning, sanitary stuff and everything like that, since more of it is just naturally going to fall on teachers? Is that something we've planned for, where teachers will all have that?
Yep, we'll have the spray bottles and the tablets that dissolve. That was the most cost-effective thing we could find that had that 1 minute dwell time as well, because I think the wipes had 4 or 5 minutes, and that wasn't really ideal for your passing times. So that tablet that we just discovered, we get bombarded with different vendors and different cleaning products, so it's hard to vet through it all, but we just recently found that tablet that had the 1 minute clean time, dwell time of disinfecting, and more cost effective than the wipes.
I know that, you know, a lot of teachers have been priding themselves on, you know, what their classroom looks like at the end of the day for years. So, I think there are some additional responsibilities, but then it might be tweaking, you know, the things that we can have students do. so we know we can't have students, doing the wiping, but, elementary teachers and have had hokies in their classrooms. I've even seen, I've seen dustpans and brooms. I think I've even seen a couple vacuums. I mean, so there are things that that teachers have gravitated towards to do on their own for years. Golden Dustpan Awards, and I've seen in a couple different schools. So, those things you might just have to tweak what they do, and maybe they, help prepare, the classroom in other ways in between each transition. But I think it's just that team approach that, David talked about, and hopes that we all have it and we all can use it to move everybody forward in a safe way.
And we also talked about removing unnecessary furniture that's hard to clean. For example, any soft furniture, bean bags, or kind of the game chairs that I think maybe are in some secondary rooms, the carpets, the rugs in some elementary classrooms, because that stuff's harder to clean and disinfect. And so I'm not sure if that was brought up any of the leadership teams at the building level, but that was some talks that we had earlier this summer, but haven't really gone too far with that because we got to store the stuff too.
Thanks, Tina. Great points. Joe, we kind of went through all the way to 16, right? Yeah. So 17, we have many students from Sherburne County. Will we be following the most restrictive model based on whichever county has the highest counts? That answer is partially correct because it's part of the data that you use, and it's not me, making the decision. It's a regional COVID team that comprises of MDH, county health professionals, people from our district, and also so Sherburne County is part of that decision-making process, but it's just part of the process. They would even allow us, so even if Wright County got to, let's say, 40 cases per county, there could potentially be recommendation from the state that if they knew where all those cases were, there could potentially mean that we would, especially if they were isolated in long-term care. And I'm using a pretty exaggerated number just to make this point. They didn't really use that exaggerated number. They usually gave bubble numbers, but you still have to consider multiple factors of, it's not just the county data, but it's county. We have two counties, county data, and then also, is it all in Delano? If there are any school cases, and we're still at, if we're still at 13, can we stay in hybrid? Absolutely. Or if we're at 18, getting close to that 20, but it's all in Delano, should we be considering more restrictive and going up to what happens at 20? Or is it okay to stay? Well, if it was all happening, in Delano, they might not, we might as a school district, take that information and work with our regional team and be able to move forward with the same instructional model that we are currently in. So it's really, there's a lot of working pieces to that. So it's really hard to just say one way, but there's multiple people working on it, and they're all professionals. They're using data. They're also looking at where the COVID cases are. And, I'll try to be transparent with that so that people can kind of learn how, that process goes. And so we should get some information this Thursday, and we'll just try walk through it for the first time as a practice here. I'm hoping to make up the mind for Thursday for the week of September 14th. But yet that data really isn't lining really well yet. It's still early. And so I will announce it, but I will announce it with a caveat that, there's always that potential where if it spiked, we're not going to put people in harm's way just because we said it. You know, we're always going to take the most safe approach that we can. And I'd like to always err on the side of caution, you know, if we can, as far as like those numbers that are on bubble areas. Thank you, Tanya. Oh boy, you guys, if you only knew. I've never talked so much in one day in my life, and my family would probably disagree with me, but I can assure them today. So,
actually, Eric, can I cut in for a second?
Absolutely.
I'm going to give you a small gift here.
Yes.
You know, looking at the questions, looking at the time, I know that you mentioned when we had a conversation today, you mentioned that you'll try to get at least some form of written answer to all of these questions. You know, we obviously don't have enough time to discuss everything we want to, and you know, answering a question sometimes brings on 2 other questions, right? So I'm going to highlight a few questions and 5 more, I think, maybe 6. We'll see.
Okay.
Pete and I are arguing about 2.
Okay.
So here we go. So questions we'd like you to discuss. He sees 18 and 19 as somewhat similar, but nonetheless address 18 and 19. Please address number 20, number 21, and then we're going to go all the way to 38 and 39, if you can imagine that. And 38, I know I was in the school board meeting and there was some conversation on that, but I don't know if we're here or not. And it's just something that came up a lot with questions, you know, 4 or 5 days ago, whatever. And then 39, dealing with outdoor education. I just think staff just wants to hear a little bit more about that. Certainly short answers. Don't think you have to go into all the details, but just to touch on all of these points. Thank you. And thank you for taking the time to do all this. Absolutely.
We'll do it as many times as we need to get everybody feeling good and being prepared. So discuss substitute teachers. Really, I'm going to let Barb take this one because she's been doing this already for several weeks.
So since we met last time, we have reached out to our substitute teachers, and we have about 50 who have indicated they're interested in returning, and also have started our recruitment process. So working with these teachers, we had board approval today to increase our substitute rates, which will help. And we are also looking to find some 60-day substitutes. These would be building substitutes, if you will. And this will give us at least a starting point of training some people as backups for some of those, you know, immediate, last minute kinds of things that are going to pop up in buildings. 60 days will get us right to the holiday season if we're in school every session. So it gives us a good amount of time to kind of, you know, measure this out, see if we need more. Is this working? What are some other options that we have? So that's what we've done up to this point. And we'll just go from there.
Keep on a roll, Barb. Go for 19.
Okay. If a teacher's not ill but in quarantine, what happens to their in-person class? So again, this is going to take a lot of problem solving to figure out. We will have some substitutes, but I'm sure we won't be able to have all substitutes. So if that teacher is able to teach from home, is there a way that students could dial in remotely? I think this would be especially an option at the secondary level. So we will have to be thinking about safe spaces for students to be and maybe some classroom monitor types of situations. If it's a classroom that really is going to require it and we need someone for 2 weeks, this would be something that we might put one of our 60-day subs into so we can have some consistency in those classrooms. And we may have classrooms being monitored by another teacher, just kind of watching over. So we're really open to ideas that teachers have on how to cover some of this. I think the more we can keep teachers working and not using their sick time, it'll be a win-win for everyone, our students, the teacher, their colleagues, everyone. So we're looking for some suggestions, some help, some good team thinking around this as well. Is that good? Follow-up questions? Keep working with me. Some of your questions, I like them. We like to have time to think about them and problem solve with you. So.
All right, an elementary one, and I see you have your resident expert, Ms. Schmidt. So she'll be able to help problem solve this one if we need any clarification on it. But please discuss what type of support is going to be given to elementary teachers. How does the district plan to offer some relief assistance to staff members who have contact with students throughout the day with minimal breaks? So, so just like even looking at just so we all know, like middle school and high school teachers are also, so the first thing I wanted to say is just like, we almost have more unification than we've ever had before because of the shortened day. We're all teachers are going to be doing some unique things that they haven't had to do before. So, sitting with their, M&M or homeroom during lunch and teaching social emotional curriculum and or at the elementary, not having specialists be a prep provider. And instead, at first it was, co-teach with them and really want to like almost take that back just a little bit and know that, you might be there to get your students going. But just like was in the day when I've seen as a principal, some of the elementary preps be removed outside the prep provider schedule and implemented still as part of the schedule. So like book checkout, I've seen like 30-minute segments before at the elementaries that I've been part of. And we had teachers there, but they were doing what they needed to do to keep progressing with some of the things that they needed to get done and or step out. Obviously, we all need to use the restroom and things like that. So it's not a like prep provider anymore, but it's still a time to catch your breath, to do some things to help your day be successful at the elementary level. And then I just think, we, even though we approve the length of day today, please know that like that wasn't a top-down decision either. That all went to leadership teams, and it really came, and it was our EMM discussion that we had out by the trees. But it was really looking at our school day differently that got us thinking, got Jeff Hagley thinking to look at. Can we offer a shortened day as an option? And that was like was heard by Mr. Hagley because he heard the teachers that were there from EMM sharing with us that it would be nice to be able to use that end of the day to take care of your own children. And if we could have flexible times, would we consider that as a school board, as a school district? And so that got resurfaced, even though it was part of negotiations. We resurfaced it as part of something that we could do as a district to give teachers some flexibility at the end of every day, because we believe that your professionalism is going to continue and will uphold professionalism as part of our standard and expectation of what you do inside the classroom is the most important thing. And when the students are gone, we just expect teachers to be prepared for the next day to continue the learning. And so really the shortened day was a philosophical thing that was developed at grassroots from a meeting between EMM in order to provide as much time possible for teachers to look at taking care of their own family, minimizing contact for them so they didn't have to go to a second daycare, and allowing that flexibility. So we knew at the time, I'll be honest, I thought at the time I was going to take the approach that Big Lake was going to use, and they've added time to their school day. And I thought that's what we needed to do to get this all done. So whether it be, cleaning between I never would have fathomed a shortened school day. But I feel like because of those discussions, we were able to do something that in the end, I think is going to be really good for people. It's going to be a little unique getting used to. But yet at the end of the school day, I think teachers are going to be refreshed. They're going to take care of business when they need to. And I think kids are going to, if we're having 5-year-olds be in school for 6.5 hours a day and adults work for 8 hours a day, I'm not sure that we were developmentally appropriate. Maybe we have went too far with our amount of time. And so coming back with the amount of time, I still think, and if we teach the essential standards, I think it's going to work really well.
Eric, I don't know that. I didn't write that question. But I think some concerns I've had are worries about our day being so full and busy that like we won't have breaks here and there as readily to email parents back and communicate with each other as much as we used to. So just knowing that we have some support when we tell parents, like, if you email me in the middle of the day, I might not know that you're picking your kid up. Like, your teachers aren't going to have as many times to check their emails and see those sort of things. That would be really helpful. And then there's always the concern about running to the bathroom. But I think as teams, we can help each other with that.
That's a great point, Tanya. I mean, when I was teaching, we had to call, parents had to call the office for sure because we didn't have email. And we might have to go back to that system because absolutely shortened day, you're not going to have time to do that. You'll have, a little bit of time during the 30-minute specialist then you'll have a little bit of time for lunch, but that should be time to eat, at that time. And then, time at the end of the day. But yet during that day when it's so critical to get kids to where they need to go, we might have to go back to a new system or a different type of system to get that information.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I think there's going to be a lot this year that we're really not going to know how it's going to work until we actually are trying it. And we're really going to need the people who are doing the trying of it and living the day by day to let everyone else know how it's working and what issues are arising or what concerns there are. Because there's just so many unknowns and so much that we're just guessing here and trying to figure out, is this going to work?
I wrote that one down and definitely will bring that one forward as part of setting up our kind of our boundaries for our families and what to do and how to get important information.
Hey, Eric, I'm using all my cell phone data right now. It's great. But when you brought up flex time, which we had, like you said, we had a really good conversation about, and it was great to see that we were all kind of seeing things in a new lens, all of us included. I don't want to go too far into flex time now, but is that something that building admin will be sharing with their staff in the near future, so that elementary and secondary teachers will know that there are going to hopefully be some flexibility in the mornings and the afternoons, respectively, for childcare and all of that stuff that you mentioned. Is that something that teachers can expect to see from a building admin, or is that going to come from the district office?
Barb, do we have the MOU signed and everything?
Yep, and so the email that came out about options for staff had on it flexible schedules. But, I also think that will come through building admin as well. They're going to need to touch on that and really make sure people are aware of it. And if you think we need to do more communication around that, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I just think, I know it's been mentioned in a couple different settings. And I know we haven't gone into a lot of detail because, like you say, it's unique by building, and administrators want to check in with teachers and all of. I just think now that it's been mentioned a few times, not that we need it soon, but just to let our teachers know that there will be a clear, concise explanation of how that's going to look and how we're going to work that. I think would be great at some point.
You got it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Makes sense. Unified approach, right? Joel, you said 21, and then did I skip all the way to the end now? No, wait, 21, right? Yeah, I think 21 was the next one. Regardless of the model, there will be increased amount of paperwork for special education teachers to complete for the coming school year. How will this be handled? Yes, this is true. There's no doubt the director and assistant director are working to set up plans and routines for new paperwork requirements. Coordinators will be a first go-to as well for support in this area. More to come on this as workshop week approaches. That's a big one to problem solve. Lots of school districts are trying to grapple with that one. Not too many are out on front with a clear roadmap, so we will continue to work behind the scenes for that one. $38 and $39, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So how are the district's HVAC system and ventilation systems operating to keep students and staff safe? And are there systems that will dramatically reduce staff and students to COVID, influenza, and other airborne illnesses? If so, should cost be an issue? So here, obviously somebody knew, I think, a little bit about cold plasma, maybe 3-4 weeks ago when we didn't think we had that extra CARES money. And so we were, researching it, but not knowing how to implement it without excess of over $200,000. And so we now know that we have that new CARES money. So we are going to implement cold plasma in order to give us the freshest and safest air possible. And I ask anybody, and I want everybody to go on a field trip this week. Go to the middle school office, stay in the office, take a couple deep breaths, and then open the door that goes directly into the hallway, out into the middle school hallway there, either out the workroom or the office door. I thought they were crazy when they said, I got to come down here and experience the air. I thought, okay, whatever. The cold plasma is in this location. We're trying it out. I'm sure I'll be able to tell. I could tell within seconds. And Chris Shima said, I told you. She said, it's amazing. And so the secretary there said, it's amazing. They feel the difference. And this system should give us a reprieve that potentially people with allergies, people with asthma, I know people at Pinewood have said for years, oh my gosh, I always feel like, that there's something in the air. And I think this is really going to give us a playing field that I never dreamed of. So this is going to be amazing, you guys. And 39, please fully discuss outdoor education. How many students? How will it be staffed? How are safety precautions different? SPED services, and more. This is what we were grappling with much of the day here today as a first step in scheduling in the elementary level. So we are, I am committed to like a 15-to-1 adult to student ratio. I feel like we have to have that in order to be, successful. And this program's future depends on it being successful now. We had 100, we had over, I think it's 147, I lost my notes here, 147 students who in the end wanted that type of programming. And so it was under the 250 spots that we have locations for, we have student capacity for. And in the end, I think that's good. We were going to go really big, really fast, and that's not usually the way to build program. In the end, it looks like, and I saw Barb already made the change on the board presentation tonight, but right now, as our numbers are right now, we are going to retract a little bit, start slower, start with 6 teachers, and to develop a smaller cohort in order to make sure that we get this off on the right foot. And so we still uphold our parent. We told parents that not everybody's getting in. We're still going to use a lottery. We're just not going to go all the way up to 250. Some of the locations that I secured, I was never really fully comfortable with. Like the 4th Street skating rink here. It has a very small playground. It doesn't offer a lot of aesthetic beauty. Besides when the rink would be flooded, I'm not sure that that would be the location that people in the end would have the best experience at. So for now, we are going to look for 6 teachers. The list I was looking at had everybody on it from the first go around from the staff survey. And it looked like we had plenty of students interested in either 50-50. I'm sorry, plenty of teachers interested in 50-50 or the nature-based outdoor education program. Over time, I wasn't receiving the updates that a few teachers, several teachers had pulled their interest back from that. And so as we sat to look at numbers tonight, I thought I had a list. In fact, I even got interviewed by Channel 5 tonight, unbeknownst to me. They popped by, gave me about a 30-minute notice. And I said we had more than enough teachers. I was going by the data that was compiled from the surveys. In the end, when principals, I gave them that list to relook at, they said, oh, this list has changed quite a bit since then. And so instead of thinking that I had way too many teachers, and that's why Barb posted last week, and I contacted Joel, Jason, Katie, and Peter to decide how to go through that posting process. We did find out that we did not have enough teachers to do the whole full 150. And so that guided us back down to a path that was the student level of 147, which is a good path for us to be at. So now we've been contacting teachers throughout the day that were on our initial list, because we want it to be a program where teachers say, I want that. That's the best way to build this program. And we will get there now that we have a lesser student amount. But if we would have had 250 teachers, we would have had to do some additional recruiting, it looks like. But after saying what I'm going to say now, we'll probably have a lot more teachers want it because we are looking at modeling that 15-to-1 ratio. So we will have about 20 students per grade level, and that will include 1 teacher and 1 para for that 20. So that way we feel like we'll get it off on the right start. We know that's going to cause some staffing problems elsewhere, and we might have to use that will be one of the competing needs for CARES dollars. We know we have CARES dollars that can be used for COVID costs that could be used in the classroom to hire additional teachers. We've promised outdoor education, so we have to come through with that. We want to do it with teachers who want it. So I've been getting some texts tonight of some pretty funny text messages of teachers who are excited about it, and that's what we want. But we are paring that down to 6 than the original 10 that we thought we were going to need. It will be in 3 locations. We'll have 3 grade levels at the Lestadian Church. We will have 3 grade levels at the YMCA. Add that to the preschool that's at Bertram, and they're both at, so they will have 4 grade levels all at Bertram and 3 at the Lestadian Church. So now we have teachers that get to kind of pair with each other too. We're missing a couple of my locations that were my favorite. We're missing a couple partnerships that I was hoping for, but I don't know that we need to push the envelope unless all of a sudden we get a resurgence of teachers tonight or tomorrow and say, hey, I know that I said to take my name off that, but I wouldn't mind being part of it. Because what we did is we did take off Bridgeside and Ellison, which were 2 of my favorite locations. especially Ellison for maybe some older grades. The river is right there. Bridgeside, the river's there too, but it seems kind of shielded and doesn't feel as close. And I think both locations have a lot of aesthetic beauty. They have, water. They have, prairie grass, flowers, lots of different things to be part of their nature. They have both have beautiful playgrounds, both have beautiful facilities, and their proximity to schools like the middle school for field trips, for going to use different rooms, were really good. But we pulled those spots off the table right now in order to group teachers together and get people to be able to have that teaming concept. In the future, we could add those back. Maybe we look at halfway mid-year once we get it rolling, or maybe for next year. I would also be open if we do get a couple more teachers to that just have a resurgence of, hey, no, I really, now that I hear about this, I know I sent out some information last week, but until you can just hear about it and maybe see that ratio, maybe it's a little more enticing now. But any questions about that?
I think that summed up a lot of that. And obviously when questions come in, we've been in touch, to say the least. And again, thanks for hearing us out. For all the teachers who have been sending questions, we've received a ton, and we will answer the ones we can, and the ones we can't, Eric and Barb will meet and discuss. I think just to tie it in the last point here tonight before we sign off, because I know it's been a long evening for everyone. Just tying it in with outdoor school and distance learning, and when do you think it's fair? I know we just had information coming in as recently as today. When is it fair for staff to expect to know their assignment for the year? Is there a day in your mind, Eric, that everyone will know when they can start bracing and planning for?
Yeah, by the end of this week. I feel like we're still on track for that date for staff. Okay. We might not have our parent letters until Monday now, but that would only be one day out.
Okay. Sounds good. And for the teachers, if you have questions that come up tonight, obviously send them on to Joe and I, and we'll get them and we'll keep looking into them.
And just as a clarifier, because we have people that come to different sessions, and so we might have some non-certified staff watching. That question was for certified staff, and my answer is Friday for certified staff.
Okay.
Appreciate
Eric,
you guys.
How are the numbers compared to the distance learning students and teachers lining up, or the indoor-outdoor option?
Yeah. Distance learning between the people who have medical documentation and the teachers who just said they would do distance learning, we have plenty of teachers to cover our students.
Okay.
In fact, that one, we will, have to do some prioritization. All right.
Any other questions?
I appreciate you guys so much. There's no way to do this with it any other way than this. And I hope that, as we untangle everything, I hope everybody's proud of how we're doing this. And if you're not, tell us, let us figure out how to keep tweaking it, to keep making it better. This is our school district, all of us together.
Well, thank you all. Thanks. Yeah, we'll certainly, like I said, if you could have some written responses for a few of them. And as Peter said, we'll continue to field a few questions and send them your way.
Sounds good.
Do we have to adjourn?
I
Yes.
think so. Somebody wants to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Melissa, seconded by Candy. All those in favor of adjourning? Candy?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Missy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Jennifer? Aye. We can adjourn at 9:44 and it's past my bedtime. So good night, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone, for
everybody.
staying so late.
Happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you.